OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
Yeah, 7:30 OTB AM. Very good morning to you, wherever it is you are. Delighted to have with you and you with us, and an absolutely jam show for you again this morning between now and 10 AM. Eoin, good morning to you.
Morning, Adrian.
We were, I didn't watch the football last night. I felt slightly guilty about that, but I thought I'll have a quick, just when the Arsenal game was getting going on, I thought I'll have a quick flick over here to 4:05, see what's going on with the golf, and about 5 or 6 hours later, I was still going. I just couldn't get off it, I have to admit. And the 17th is kind of the thing that brings you in. I don't know if I'm sure people paid attention to this last night. Maybe a lot of people were in bed as well. So a quick update on the players. Rory is, whatever the Ops are shooting the lights out is what's happened. His tournament is over, and he can get booking his private jet for the weekend, as Dave McIntyre was pointing out on Twitter yesterday. 7 over par was how he wrapped up his opening round. The players, pretty awful stuff, but it was really the push of Shane Lowry towards the top of the leaderboard that was sustaining me on, I have to admit. That, and looking at the 17th, which is maybe the greatest spectacle in golf, really. It's the one hole that you look at. Do you ever watch that, you can jump on the various websites of the tournaments and the apps, and you can watch one hole if that sort of is the thing that floats your boat. Normally, I would never be into that, but I think the 17th at Sawgrass, I'd happily make an exception for, and probably sit and watch 4 or 5 hours of it. It is quite the sight.
Yeah, it really is. I've often wondered if a ball has ever landed on the tree in the island at 17 on that hole. That's always been the thing that I've wondered about that. It's visually beautiful. Like it does make it better when there are when there is a massive full gallery there, just kind of I guess encasing that little inlet that pops out where the green obviously is. That's when it's at its best. I think this is a very boring thing to say, but I think golf holes look better when there are just loads and loads of people standing around and you're like, wow, this looks spectacular, especially if you've got a green that just looks as nice as the one in 17.
Yeah, even the atmosphere of it and all that sort of stuff, because the players would come around, they'd get close to the crowd, and then they'd be back out onto their little island. But yeah, no, it was. I am not clearly at the geek levels of our Golf Weekly friend zone, and I did wonder last night about the greens and regulation stats of the 17th at Sawgrass versus most other par 3 holes, because I don't know. There was a point yesterday. With a few hours left to go and play, where they were saying 30 balls had hit the water, and some of those had been from repeat balls from the same players as well. But I did wonder about like that. Nick Doherty described it very well in Sky last night. He was saying that when you're coming around the 16th, you're actually trying to avoid any side of the green, that you just don't want to let it in your head until you're actually stood on the tee at the 17th. But it's an incredible side, and Lowry played it brilliantly last night. He had a brilliant shot in, went straight at the pin, knocked it in for birdie. He needed it because he'd let one slip by on the 16th, and then he goes and he bogeys the 18th, which is very frustrating because it was an incredible round that leaves him on 4 under par after day one, 3 back from Sergio Garcia, who's 2 shots ahead of the pack. But like Lowry, great round. Was tweeting about it last night. Was delighted with how things went, but he must be kicking himself because he's definitely left shots out there, and around a course like that, they'll be potentially crucial come Sunday. Hopefully, he's still in the mix, but. There's all sorts going on with him, and he'll be worth keeping an eye on today. He'll be out, I presume, in the early groupings today and again over the weekend. But his putting has been the big thing in the lads. Again, at Golf Weekly, we're talking about it on the podcast this week. But his putting has been the thing that's been a shortcoming over the last number of years. And even watching yesterday, he's changed his grip slightly. So he used to be right over left, and now he's gone left over right. So it's a huge shift for him. I mean, it wasn't. There was times looking at it yesterday. It's easy, it was pointed out by the commentators on the 17th when he nails it in from whatever it was, 15, 18 feet, and it looks great. And it's like, it's all down to the grip. But I mean, it wasn't mentioned so much when it slipped past on 16 and 18. But yeah, look, we'll see exactly what happens to him over the weekend. But I bring it up under the context that I think that there's very few things that makes Ireland feel good about itself than Shane Lowry going well in a big tournament.
Yeah, it's true. He is the country's favourite sports person. There's no question about that. We did, obviously, at the end of 2019, Ireland's greatest sports moment of the decade, and Shane Lowry winning the Open won it, as far as I recall. I think he beat Kenny Taylor's gold medal in the Olympics in the final, actually, which goes to show how
Incredible.
beloved this guy is. Just looking up TPC Sawgrass, it's $720 to play around on the main course, on the stadium course at Sawgrass, which is, I'm not going to lie, a little bit lower than I expected. So like a pandemic is clearly the time to be playing golf at the moment. If anybody is in the general vicinity of
I wonder what
Sawgrass,
they
then
if you rocked up and said, listen, I just want to play the 17th, I'll give you an 18th of that green fee. Will you let me in for a crack at it? Go on. So while I was watching Ireland's favourite sports star on and drawn in by his wizardry around the course, you were watching Arsenal.
Yeah, we all make bad decisions in life, don't we? In fairness, Arsenal were pretty entertaining to watch last night. They're never not entertaining. It's never a situation where you come away thinking, God, I didn't get my entertainment's worth out of that now. And oh God, like I'm not sure if you've seen that meme that does the rounds at the moment, where there's a guy cycling on a bike and then he sticks a stick into the spokes of his bike and then he falls along on the grass. Arsenal were that meme last night, except they managed to keep cycling after sticking a stick into their spoke. They managed to get away despite shooting themselves in the foot. Danny Ceballos comes off the bench and does exactly what Granit Xhaka did against Burnley at the weekend, which is receives the ball from the goalkeeper, turn around and realise that there is an opposition player waiting to hunt him down, which I guess is different to the Xhaka one, because Xhaka basically kicked the ball off Chris Wood. In this occasion, Olympiacos actually stole the ball off Ceballos, went through and buried the ball to make the game 1-1 last night, despite the fact that Arsenal were dominating the game. And you just thought, well, this is unbelievably typical. Please never change Arsenal, is what a lot of non-Arsenal fans would have been saying last night. And then out of nowhere, they come up with the goods and actually win the game 3-1. Gabriel with a beautiful looping header, and Mohamed El Neni, offended by the fact that Olympiacos gave him 20 yards of space, runs into said space and buries the ball into the bottom corner of the net from range. 3 brilliant goals from Arsenal, a really good goal from Olympiacos, in fairness. And the Europa League, if it wasn't so meaningless to a lot of people, it might be held up in a higher regard, because sometimes the drama you get in this thing is unparalleled, because there is just the right amount of quality and just the right amount of a lack of quality, which lends itself to drama happening. And this doesn't just go for Arsenal, but it is particularly true for Arsenal, leading 3-1 and 3 of those goals being away goals going into the second leg. Is also a little bit of a cocktail for a disaster in the second leg, and there's no sense they're definitely going through. But you just got to enjoy these journeys while they last, and getting revenge against the Greeks after what they did to Arsenal last year could be a sweet thing to enjoy.
I often think that this might be the Irish in me, but I think that the experience of supporting Manchester City at the minute, or Liverpool last season, is not really the true sporting experience. It's not really what you're supposed to do when you're a sports fan. It's supposed to be about supporting Derry last night, and he makes some cock-ups and he's probably not going to win the thing at the end. And it's supposed to be, I mean, there's maybe no truer experience of that than supporting Arsenal, Owen, I might offer, until such point over the next few years where somebody realises this club, and apologies for using the expression, but they're a sleeping giant, and somebody needs to come in and make some massive investment in them, and suddenly they become a Manchester City. They're fodder for it at some point, but you have paid your penance and are currently no end in sight of the true sporting experience.
Well, I will challenge that, because Mikel Arteta this week, before the game against Olympiacos, said, I think this project is going to go bang, in a positive sense, I must say.
Right.
He said that he said that the Arsenal Football Club are ready to explode again, in a positive way, which of course is not going to bite him in the ass whatsoever when Olympiacos win the second leg 4-0, and when Arsenal get hammered by Tottenham, for example, in the North London derby on Sunday. You say, I've paid my penance. There is no sense that is in the past tense whatsoever. Arsenal Football Club takes whatever was left of your soul at the start of every season and proceeds to diminish it further. It will break your heart, that football club. It will destroy you emotionally in ways that you didn't know you could be destroyed. And winning the first leg of a European tie is the perfect way for them to set you up for a disappointment. Maybe not in the second leg, but at some point coming down the line in this competition. They will always find a way of inflicting a wound on you, rubbing salt in said wound, and then twisting the knife a little bit more in that wound as well. You will always come away unhappy with Arsenal Football Club, but I'll take the little bit of joy that it brought for a few minutes last night, and the anger that was in that left footed strike of Martin Odegaard last night. The Norwegian footballers are knocking it out of the ballpark at the moment, almost literally. And his strike was just so angry, so filled with fury after almost giving away a goal in the first half last night. And I'm all for that. He clearly feels what it's like to be part of Arsenal Football Club, which is a generally miserable existence.
It's a bit like Sport and Kerry football over the last 10 years, I was thinking as you were describing it there.
Well, one of those entities has won the main title on offer to them in the last 10 years, and Arsenal very much have not come close to winning the main title on offer to them in that 10 years. So it's a little bit different, and I think the difference is Arsenal struggling against Burnleys and Kerry maybe struggling against Dublin's. With great pluralisation on my part there, which is the difference. One is a little harder to take than the other.
Well done, Eoin. You have not risen to the bait, and that's absolutely to your credit. One line we should mention as well this morning, we'll get into a bit more detail later on, but it looks as though from some of the teams that have been named across the newspapers this morning for the Ireland game against Scotland on Sunday in the Six Nations, it seems that the big line out of it will be that Jameson Gibson Park gets the nod at 9 ahead of Conor Murray, and it's interesting because he's obviously back and he's fit, and just in terms of the whole conversation about 9 and 10, we're just so uncertain where we're at. There doesn't seem to be a clear plan of here are my guys, or this is my guy ahead of 2023, but that does appear to be the big line maybe coming out of that this morning. But we'll get a bit more detail, I'm sure, with Phil in a few minutes, and we'll talk to Alan Quinlan a bit later on as well about that. But it's gone 20 to 8 on this Friday morning. OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good mornings start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Phil Egan, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are you doing?
Good. You was bowled over by Arsenal as Eoin was there.
Yeah, I was very impressed with the header from Gabriel. I thought it was brilliant. And the fact that they rescued the situation, because they got done playing out from the back again, and you thought, here we go again. But no, Arsenal and Spurs looking good. United, a bit of work to do. Rangers also slightly ahead in terms of their away goals. So I still have hopes of that all Premier League, Europa League tie. Could we get a North London derby quarter-final in the Europa League? They obviously play this Sunday in the Premier League. That could be one where they keep their cards close to their chest. And the fact that it actually falls in between Europa League ties as well means both managers will probably make changes on Sunday.
Yeah, well, like it is in the context of that we bring it up, and like I have made the case on this show not that long ago that Jose Mourinho's time at Tottenham is done, but I've come full circle, or 180 at least anyway, Phil, in that like Kane is back, he's scoring goals, Bale I think comes off the bench last night, gets half an hour, Ali gets an hour and is cooking along nicely. Like suddenly the Tottenham team are looking very, very good.
Jose's back is what you're saying?
Yeah, big time.
Yeah, well, look, we see this with Spurs, where you think it's not going to end very well, and they come in with a few results, and maybe a sign that things are starting to change for them in terms of fortune was the Fulham game, where the goal is chalked off by VAR and Spurs hold out for a 1-0, and these were games where they tried a few times this season to hold out for 1-0 wins, and they got caught. You think of the Wolves game, the Palace game, even Fulham when they played them at White Hart Lane as well. So they're starting to keep clean sheets, but you're coming towards the business end of the season. This is where Mourinho is going to have to earn his money, and a lot of money he does earn. But I still think that they're going to give City a bit of a scare in that League Cup final. They've as good a chance as any in the Europa League, and they're not necessarily out of the Champions League running just yet in terms of the Premier League places, but they don't have much room for error, and that's why there's more pressure on them, I think, going into the North London derby on Sunday. I think Arsenal, not quite, but they could be in free hit territory on Sunday.
I agree. I think when you said that both teams could be weakened, I think Spurs probably go for it fully, don't they?
Yeah, and Arsenal, now they don't want to lose to Spurs, obviously, given the fact that it's their bitter rivals, and Spurs have got the upper hand on them the last couple of times. But yeah, I think Spurs have to win this game if they want to finish in the top four. Arsenal, we know they're not going to finish in the top four or anywhere near it. They're pretty much putting all the eggs into the Europa League basket.
And Phil, the Liverpool juggernaut is back. The dip is over. That brief flirt with doom at Liverpool Football Club.
You mean the 6
now.
home defeats in a row? That doesn't seem too brief, Adrian.
It's over now, isn't it? Liverpool are back. The juggernaut is here. They're going to steamroll Wolves on Monday night.
No, they won't steamroll the Wolves because Wolves are a really good second half team. I think I was saying this to the lads yesterday. My feeling from Wednesday night was at least Liverpool's season is prolonged now, because if they'd been knocked out by Leipzig, that's it. It's done and dusted. Whereas now they actually have a little bit of a break after the Wolves game because they've no FA Cup. Obviously the international break. Looks like none of the South American players will travel. So does Klopp decide to do some work on the training ground? This is how he turned it around with Dortmund in that final season when they looked like they could get relegated, and then they finished the season quite strongly. And he puts it down to actually being able to spend time with the players in the training ground and obviously have a winter break. But does he maybe say to some of the players, do you know what, take a bit of time out, because this has been a really tough season for all. As I said, it looks like the Brazilian players won't travel. There was talk that Jota wouldn't go either, and we don't know about Mane and Salah as well. Now, I don't think they're going to blitz the Premier League between now and the end of the season, because I think they're going to have all their eyes on that Champions League quarter-final, and hopefully they get a good draw. But he'll do what he did against Fulham. He's going to take players out of the team to try and rest them for the game. So do you know what? I think Liverpool fans would be perfectly fine with that. If they've 10 games left, they're going to lose plenty of those games, but it's all about the Champions League now. Still don't think they can win it, but as I said, it just gives them a bit of hope, and maybe the signs the other night with Fabinho playing in midfield, that when Van Dijk does come back in next season, it's not all gloom and doom, that it doesn't need a massive rebuild. They certainly need to recruit, but wouldn't be overly confident that they're going to go and get the 3 points against Wolves, though.
Yeah, well, the good one. Keep an eye on Monday night. Where are we starting, Phil? There's lots been happening and lots to come over the weekend. Yeah,
well, I suppose the one thing will be of interest to the Irish fans is Jurgen Klopp's press conference when he gives an update on Queevy and Kelleher, because Stephen Kenny revealed last night he's doing a Q&A with some Irish football fans that Darren Randolph is definitely out of the World Cup qualifiers against Serbia and Luxembourg. So that will open the door for Queevy and Kelleher to start. But he isn't training at the moment. He's been out of action for Liverpool. Obviously, he is the second choice to Alisson. But you think back to the Sheffield United game when Adrian started, because Queevy and Kelleher was unavailable. So apparently Kelleher could resume training this week, and the squad is due to be named next week. But if there's no Kelleher and no Randolph, then Stephen Kenny's got a problem. We would imagine Mark Travers is the favourite to start. Now, he obviously is at Bournemouth. He went out on loan to Swindon, played for Swindon, but he's back at Bournemouth and he's sitting on the bench. The other option is Gavin Bazunu, who's playing with Rochdale. We know this guy is going to be one for the future, but would you be able to throw him in for a World Cup qualifier away to Serbia? Again, with Stephen Kenny, it just seems that he can't catch a break in terms of, you think 2020 wasn't great, 2021 new year, and already without a ball being kicked, he's got injury problems. And Darren Randolph is Mr. Dependable when it comes to the Ireland team. He doesn't miss games, but he's obviously going to miss that. Just to put a bit more meat on the bones in terms of those Europa League ties, obviously Manchester United drew 1-1 at home to AC Milan. Going pretty well when Amad Diallo came off the bench to score his first goal for United, but they conceded in injury time Simon Kjær with the goal, and Dean Henderson didn't exactly cover himself in glory. And this is the problem for Dean Henderson. It's all well and good playing for Sheffield United, but when you play for Manchester United, every mistake you make is going to be magnified, and there's always going to be that comparison. That goal that he conceded last night, a lot of people saying, would David De Gea have conceded this? This is the problem United are going to have. They don't know who their best keeper is, so anytime one of them makes a mistake, they'll always be compared to the other. But plenty of work for United to do. Obviously, we mentioned Arsenal. They won 3-1 away to Olympiacos. Spurs won 2-0 at home to Dinamo Zagreb, and Rangers drew 1-1 away to Slavia Prague. There's action tonight. One game in the Premier League. Newcastle bang out of form. They host Aston Villa. That one gets underway at 8 o'clock. Dundalk and Shamrock Rovers go head to head at Tallaght Stadium. It's the first game in the League of Ireland season, the President's Cup, and that one gets underway at 7:45. The interesting story from Alan Judge, the Irish midfielder. We obviously remember the referee Darren Drysdale squared up to Alan Judge when Ipswich were playing Northampton. Darren Drysdale, the referee, said that Alan Judge called him a cheating bald, and I won't repeat the other word. It's a 4-letter word, begins with a C. So obviously I don't want to be just marched out the door by repeating that word. But Drysdale, the referee, was handed a backdated suspension following the confrontation. Now, Alan Judge reacted to this news and he said, "I didn't want to make anything of it because it's a tough job being a referee, but I'm not going to keep quiet when I've been accused of calling the referee a cheat and using the C word. I admit I used the F word, but I said to him, you have to be effing joking." And he said that a couple of times. But the interesting thing from this is Alan Judge says Ipswich, the media team there, have the audio. And it backs him up. So we all want to hear that audio.
Wow.
And that's going to be interesting to see when that gets played. Great first round for Shane Lowry at the Players' Championship. He's 4 under par. He was 5 under after he birdied that iconic 17th hole, but he bogeyed the last. But he's only 3 behind leader Sergio Garcia. Garcia played with Rory McIlroy. Shocker of a round for defending champion Rory McIlroy. Double bogeyed his first hole. Had an 8 in there as well. So he's 7 over. Graham McDowell will tee off from 1 over. Ireland head coach Andy Farrell looks like he's going to stick with the same starting 15 when he names his team to face Scotland in the Six Nations this morning. And Joey Carberry starts for Munster against the Scarlets tonight in the Pro 14. That one at Thomond Park gets underway at 8. Leinster are away to Zebre at 5:45.
Brilliant stuff. Thanks a million, Phil. Enjoy the sport over the weekend. It is 10 to 8 on this Friday morning. You're watching OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good mornings. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Lots coming up for you between now and 10 a.m. this morning. Alan Quinlan is standing by. Loads to chat to Quinny about in terms of rugby, including the Ireland-Scotland game, obviously, on Sunday. So we'll get to that in just a moment's time. If you have any questions or comments for Quinny, do get them into us. Andy Mitten is going to join us to reflect on Manchester United's 1-1 draw with Milan last night. Looking ahead as well to the West Ham game this weekend. So that's coming your way about 10 past 8 thereabouts. James Crombie is a sports photographer, and not just any sports photographer. He's been taking some sensational snaps over the last year. You'll have seen the Murmurations photograph, I'm sure, on your timeline at some point over the last couple of weeks, and he is the guy behind that, so he's going to talk to us about how all that came about and select some of his favourite shots as well from over the years. So that'll be a great piece. Looking forward to it as well. Just after 8:30 at 9 o'clock, Nikki Symmons, the former Ireland hockey player, will join us to talk about the 3-game series, Ireland versus Great Britain, that will kick off tomorrow, runs again on Sunday in Belfast, and then final game on Tuesday, all in preparations for a big year for Sean Dancer's Ireland hockey team. So that's about 9 o'clock this morning. Crappy quiz at 9:15, and then Peter Crouch in conversation with Nathan will be coming your way from 9:30 this morning. So that is the menu of what's on the show this morning. As I said, if you have any questions or comments, do fire them into us and we'll put them to our guests this morning, so please do keep them coming in. But we're going to kick things off with Alan Quinlan. Good morning to you, Quinny.
Morning, Adrian. How are you?
Good, thanks. There's so much to chat to you about, so we're going to jump straight in and with some of the stories across the back pages this morning suggesting that Jemison Gibson Park is going to get the nod over a fit again Conor Murray for the Scotland game on Sunday. Are you somewhat surprised by that, or just thinking this is a big part of the grand plan?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I think Conor Murray hasn't played in 5 weeks now, so it's up around 5 weeks. So it's not a huge surprise. Gibson Park played well in Italy. I think did well against France. Had 1 or 2 mistakes along the way, but I suppose it's to try and keep that tempo and pace going that they had against Italy. Depending on the conditions, the only concern I would have, Adrian, is if the conditions aren't great, Conor Murray probably would be better to start and bring Gibson Park off the bench if you are kind of chasing the game. So it's not a surprise that it's that Gibson Park starts, but to have Murray back in the bench is a big boost probably for the players around him and his presence, and it's probably hard on Craig Casey that he's not going to be involved, but it's not a surprise that Conor Murray is brought back in because he's such a good player and an important leader within that group as well.
Yeah, just looking elsewhere on the team as well, up front, Cian Healy looks to be back, and this is the possible team, but it'll be named a bit later today, and we expect it to go something along the lines of this. And maybe somewhat surprisingly, Quinny, but interested to get your take on it. Rob Herring comes back in at hooker, and Ronan Kelleher goes to the bench, having not done a huge amount wrong, I would suggest, over the last while.
Yeah, again, probably the reason for that is the line-out throwing. Herring's throwing is top class. I think he has more experience than Ronan Kelleher. I think he has that ability to hit the jumpers at the top of their jump, put it in over different pods that are and Scotland's defensive lineout is quite good. Johnny Gray, Scott Cummins, they're very good in the air. So I think that's probably, and they're probably looking at the impact off the bench that Kelleher can bring, his physicality and the impact he can bring in. So I think that's the reason why. To be fair to Rob Herring, he's a very good player around the field. He's not as big and maybe as physical, but he's still a very physical player. He's a superb player. But I think it's down to the line-out. I think his line-out darts are sublime and they're top class from Rob Herring.
How far is Kelleher off that level of line-out showing?
It just comes with experience on. I think it comes with dealing, like we keep saying, it's different from European level, different from Pro 14 level. As you go up to international level, that level of detail and expertise you're coming up against, and that bit of nous that teams try and figure you out. It's like a penalty taker in soccer, a goalkeeper watching back and all their penalties. It's the same with these guys. They'll be watching the technique of the throw, the type of throw, the pace in the throw and all that kind of stuff. So it comes with experience, and confidence. And Herring has a confidence about him with his throw and he backs himself. Ronan Kelleher still has a very good throw, but it just comes, and I think it's just probably a split decision that it's based on make sure we win our lineouts early on, that we're secure in that area and that we keep hold of possession in Murrayfield.
Johnny Sexton starts at 10 and Billy Burns is on the bench again, Alan, and I was looking at the games last weekend. I was looking at the Leinster game, looking at Ross Byrne. I made the point on Twitter that he is Dennis Irwin, like he is, and that is meant in the most complimentary sense, that he's at 7.5 upwards every single game. You rarely see him put a foot wrong. He's kicked something like 40 consecutive place kicks, doesn't seem to be putting a foot wrong, and I'm making the case for him. I think again there are cases for others in that position as well. But again, we've Billy Burns on the bench. Is he going to persist with this? Are you in any way surprised by that? Do you think are there other options there?
It is what it is. Like it's the Pro 14 is different, Adrian. He obviously sees something in Billy Burns that he's sticking with, and that can be a gut instinct or feeling. Well, I don't know. He's a very talented player. You're splitting hairs between Ross Byrne is very consistent, rock solid in what he does, but he's played for Ireland a few times and maybe not set the world on fire. He's been very solid. Billy Burns has played and made mistakes and had those errors over in Cardiff. So I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking or what the coaches think. It's everybody can have an opinion on this, but it is what it is. It's Andy Farrell backing someone who he believes maybe can bring a little bit of spark. He's maybe that little bit of running game is a little bit different than off the cuff stuff.
Can I ask you a question on that, Alan? Just and I don't like it's going to sound.
I think you need to get Ronan O'Gara for this one.
Well, let me just ask you one of that, just on Billy Burns versus Ross Byrne for discussion's sake, because that's the thing that's used frequently, obviously against Ross Byrne, that he doesn't have that capacity to take the ball to the line and run it. Is that not a conversation you can have with an out half and say, listen, your international prospects, I know that's been in your nature, that's the type of game you've had, but your international prospects are going to improve if you can take the ball to the line a little bit more?
Yeah, I'm sure it's something that he would ask himself. Why am I in this situation? Why aren't I on the bench behind Johnny Sexton? Why aren't I challenging him? So it's something he would have had. He should have with Mike Catt and Andy Farrell, and that kind of feedback I'm sure is given to all the players. But again, it's Andy Farrell and probably Mike Catt believing that Billy Burns can bring something a little bit different. I think he is that little bit more of a natural kind of running footballer. And that's not to say that Ross Byrne, this debate goes on all the time. That's not to say that Ross Byrne can't do that. Of course he can do that. But it's that bit of, I suppose, just kind of openness maybe that Billy Burns has. Which do you go for? Do you go for the rock solid Ross Byrne or maybe that bit of openness that you get from Billy Burns? They're obviously looking at the latter, and that's a decision that they're making. It's hard to kind of really argue one way or the other because Ross Byrne hasn't done it consistently at international level and the opportunities he's had, even though he's a very good player. And neither has Billy Byrne. So I suppose that debate will rumble on.
In Ronald O'Gara's column in the Irish Examiner this morning, Alan, he says Project 2023 kicks in the Monday after the England game. Do you think that's how the Irish coaching team are viewing these next two games, that they are must win, and then you can worry about the World Cup in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, they have to win games, Owen. I think if they lose against Scotland and England and ended up winning one game, I think there's a different type of pressure on Andy Farrell and his coaching team then. Even though, I suppose, does it really matter? Wales won one game last year, and they have this ability to bounce back and put themselves in a strong position the year after. Whereas if it happens here, and people often say the Irish team don't get criticised, but they'll be slaughtered if that is the case. And so, I probably agree. They've just got, you can't go and bring in players for the sake of it in these next couple of weeks, because they are must-win games, and I think they will give confidence and a belief going forward that things aren't as bad as they maybe seemed a couple of weeks ago. Small margins in the first two games, but they are must-win games. And I think Project 2023 has probably started in most coaches' heads. In fairness to Andy Farrell, he's brought in and capped a lot of players since he's taken over. He's probably 12 or 13 now, or 14 maybe. So he's and that'll probably continue a little bit more at pace after this tournament.
It adds a layer of pressure then onto this Sunday. I guess the relationship between Ireland and Scotland has been one-way traffic over the last few years. Maybe some Irish people have actually been surprised with the manner of the victory, say, at the last World Cup and maybe last year as well. Does that seep into a squad like Ireland this weekend, knowing the ramifications, as you point out there, of the loss on Sunday, that while people say that there isn't criticism of the rugby team, I think you'll find that any defeat to Scotland is met with a heavy dose of criticism. I wonder, does that increase the stakes within the camp over the next couple of days?
It does, and it can work to their advantage that, in the last 10 Six Nations games, Ireland have won 8, Scotland have won 2. They'll be quite conscious and aware that Scotland can be very dangerous, and they'll be hurting. The Nations Cup game in November, I thought Ireland were very impressive in that game and very dominant in the game, and I expected Scotland to really run Ireland very close in that game, or possibly win the game. They didn't do that, but they'll fancy their chances. The way Scotland started the Six Nations, beating England in Twickenham. So both teams will have different sort of confidence. I think the Scottish players are obviously will be very, very sick of Ireland getting one up on them, and I think they'll believe, if they can get the ball to Stuart Hogg, Van der Merwe, and Maitland, Redpath, Chris Harris, these guys, and of course Finn Russell, if they get good quality ball, and probably their Achilles heel has been their forward pack, where Ireland have been pretty dominant in all those wins. If they can match Ireland or even get the better of the Irish pack, well, they can cause Ireland a lot of problems. So it's a game that there's extra pressure on Ireland, but I don't think people expect Ireland to win. I think there's a bit of reality here in saying that, Scotland have improved since the World Cup, and Ireland still some question marks. But of course, there's pressure there.
Yeah. What sort of a game? You mentioned the conditions earlier about the selections, and it seems like Keith Earls is getting the nod, maybe over Jordan Larmour on that basis, that they're not expected to be great. How does that impact on our game plan? What do you expect to see?
I don't know. I think Ireland kicked a lot in the French game at home. You can't kick loosely to Hogg and Van der Merwe and Maitland or Darcy Gray, whoever the case may be, on the other wing. I think they'll try and hold on to possession and try and build a tempo in the game. It's not going to be a game where they're just going to move the ball around just for the sake of it. I think you've got to be really physical against Scotland, and they're a team that we seem to do well against when we hold on to possession. And so I wouldn't look at a really expansive type approach to beat Scotland, because I think we can hold on to the ball up front and keep it tight for when we need to. And obviously, if there's opportunities then and you build multi-phase, then you can have a real go at trying moving the ball. But I would like to see our wingers get more ball, whether it's Jordan Larmour, Keith Earls, James Lowe. I'd love to see him get some more carries early on in the game that they can run at the opposition and take them on, and maybe see Hugo Keenan come in at full back as well and hit that wider channel. So we're not going to see anything hugely different. I thought Jacob Stockdale got a brilliant try there 2 years ago with a lovely little play off the side of a ruck in midfield. So hopefully we'll see some strike plays, and Ireland get a little bit, not be the team chasing the game, because we've struggled chasing games. And if Ireland can get there, they can ask those kind of questions of the Scottish team. If they can get ahead and manage the game going forward, I think they could be in a good position. But it's a very difficult game for Ireland.
Yeah, always one of the highlights of the Six Nations schedule as well, that game. So we look forward to it on Sunday afternoon. A couple of other bits and bobs to talk to you about, Quinlan, before we let you away. One of them being the links with Donnacha Ryan and Simon Zebo away from Racing. Interested teams in Donnacha Ryan from the current Pro D2 leaders at the minute. I'm obviously not seeing a huge amount of him, but 37, he's enjoyed his time in France, clearly. That experience and the leadership qualities and the rugby nous that everybody talks about who comes in contact with him, and still playing quality, should we be trying to get him back into our system? Do you think should the RFU be looking to bring him in for those reasons, even outside of just the pure playing capacity of him?
Again, it's a hard question. Of course, someone like that coming into any of the provinces would bring great experience. It depends what he wants to do, whether he wants to get into coaching. But from a playing point of view, it'd be probably a difficult situation given everything, the financial constraints in all the provinces. But maybe I think he's going to stay in France and maybe get involved in the Pro D2 and gain more experience. I'm sure Donnacha would be a very good coach, but of course he'd be a benefit to getting back involved with Munster, getting back involved in the rugby programs here for sure.
What are you hearing about Simon Zebo?
I don't know. I think I heard a couple of weeks ago that he was going to extend the contract, and that there was going to be a contract on the table for him. I don't think he'll have a problem in securing a club, although it is a difficult and a strange time to be on the market with the financial problems that clubs will have. But I think he'll end up staying in France and probably staying at Racing. But who knows? Things can change very quickly. But I think they're probably close to getting a deal done, if not done already, I think.
All right, okay, to stay at Racing, because there were talks of bringing in Gael Fiku, which might threaten his position, but
who knows? We could look at something tomorrow and he could be going to some other club. I'm not 100% sure, but it's I think I'm not speaking for him, but I think he does love Paris. He says it openly, and I think he likes playing with Finn Russell. He seems to get on well with all those players as well.
Yeah, it's a proper bromance going on there, all right. The Champions Cup draw was on for the last 16 since we were chatting to you last, and not long to go actually to the games, as it turns out, and really tough draws for Leinster and Munster. Munster especially, and if top 14 form almost is out to go by, serious quality in that team, and Munster have a massive job in their hands here.
They have, yeah, and I think we said it last week, for both teams, Leinster can probably cope with it a little bit better, but it's a very difficult couple of weeks. The Pro 14 final, then the round 16, and then potentially a quarter final. So it's a very, very tough draw for Munster, and that's the luck of the draw. They say, no crowds takes away the Thomond Park factor for them as well. And Toulouse are, a top class side who probably are frustrated that they've come up short a few times in recent years when they've played Munster in Thomond Park, so they'll really fancy their chances there. But it's very difficult for both provinces.
Yeah, the possibility of the draws for the quarterfinals after that even are in themselves tough for both of them as well. Be great to see La Rochelle against Leinster and Munster in the semis or the final. Yeah,
it would, but I think both Leinster and Munster have to navigate very, very tricky games, and then if they get through that, playing the champions for Leinster or Exeter on the other side is very difficult as well. But yeah, of course, it would be brilliant. It would be brilliant but they're both on the stronger side of it, and there's about 5 or 6 potential winners that are all possibly going to play each other before semi-finals. So if you get through them, then there could be a European Cup on the horizon for someone who comes from that side of the draw.
Lastly then, Alan, Munster against Scarlets tonight. Joey Carberry making his first start since the start of last year. What do Munster do with Carberry over the next couple of weeks? Do they target a start in the Pro 14 final? Is it a European start, or could they possibly be looking at both?
Probably looking at both. It just depends how long he'll play tonight, and will there be an involvement next week as well. Of course, you want to start him if he's back fit, and it's just about getting minutes under the belt for him on. And of course, they'll try and start him in that Pro 14 final. That's their best probably opportunity to win a trophy. And look, again, both coaches have got to make decisions about our own players and how they target, because they can't play 5 weeks in the trot, these players. So something's got to give somewhere along the way. But I think, Carberry would be vital for Munster if they have an opportunity and a chance, and it would increase their chances of maybe getting a win against Leinster in that final. But who knows? I think it's just important if we see him getting a run of games in the next couple of weeks and improving. So tonight is vital. He starts. It's the first start in a long, long time. So hopefully that goes well for not just for Munster, but for everyone in Irish rugby.
We better get your prediction for Sunday before we let you off.
Oh, it's a really tough one to call, Adrian. I think Ireland have the measure of Scotland, but I'm just fearful that Scotland might have a little bit more confidence in themselves. So, can I go for a draw? No,
I get off the
fence. A draw is no good. I think Ireland will win by a couple of points, 3 or 4 points.
Yeah, we'll be tuned into you on Sunday anyway. So
I'll probably change my prediction by the time I go on the hard shoulder this evening. So
we have you locked in now for that. We'll be picking the bones out on Monday as well. Thanks a million, Quiddy. Enjoy the game.
Cheers, lads. Thanks, boy.
Thanks a lot. Just gone 8:10 this Friday morning. A couple of comments coming into us in relation to the rugby from Sport for Business on our YouTube channel. Morning to you, Rob. The bookies make Ireland favourites over Scotland, and he's wondering if that's based on history over form. Certainly seems to be very tight heading into the game at the weekend. Conor Hines saying probably due to the power of Ireland's front five, Scotland finally have a good front five, but now Ireland have a strong front five bench. And Malps is going for a Scotland upset. MOC reckons Ireland win. We shall see how it pans out over the weekend. Plenty of comments coming in there in relation to that as well. And on our conversation at the top of the show in relation to Shane Lowry and following him and what a great side it is for the nation, what it does for our soul, and what hopefully him being involved over the weekend, it really just changes the complexion of the weekend entirely. It looks after it saves you from all sorts of damnation and watching all kinds of rubbish on the TV when you've Larry going well at one of these big tournaments. Isolde Cody on Twitter, and good morning to you, Isolde, saying that Larry's greatest moment was his grandmother singing for his homecoming in Clara. He's not just our national treasure, his gran is our national darling as well, and I think we can all get behind that. Right, we've a lot still to come on the show this morning. Delighted to have you tuned our way, and we will have plenty to come later in the show. Up next, we're going to be talking to Andy Mitten after these.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Off the ball.
Lays it off for Harry Kane, who smashes it into the back of the net from 5 yards out. Spurs have done it again. Son and Kane have done it again. And Tottenham lead the North London Derby.
It's North London Derby Day on Off the Ball this Sunday. We'll bring you live commentary of Arsenal against Spurs as Kenny Cunningham joins Stephen Doyle. Before that, Brian Kerr and Nathan Murphy will call the shots on Leicester City's home tie with Sheffield United. We'll also have all the Six Nations updates from Mike McCarthy, watching Scotland versus Ireland, and we'll bring you the best bits from the paper review.
Off the ball. Don't miss a moment of the action every weekend from 1 p.m. on OTB Sports Radio. Listen live on the OTB Sports app.
Sean, what's that thing going round the garden?
That is our new Husqvarna Auto Mower.
Auto mower?
Yeah, it's a robotic lawnmower from Husqvarna. Cuts the grass automatically, has GPS tracking and an app. even works in the rain. I just thought, why spend time cutting grass when I could spend it with the family?
Great! You can put the dinner on, so.
No can do, love. Have to paint the man cave.
Husqvarna Auto Mower. Never mow again. Learn more at husqvarna.ie.
Get ready for the Cheltenham Festival with the Boyle Sports app, with a special offer guaranteed on every race, every day of the festival, plus extra places on each way bets over all 4 days. The Boyle Sports app has got you covered. Need to study up? Check out our Racing Post insights or watch our exclusive video previews with Cheltenham Gold Cup winning jockey Robbie Power. The Cheltenham Festival on the faster than ever Boyle Sports app. Boyle Sports. This is betting. Gamble responsibly. See gamblingcare.ie. 18 plus.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
8:15, lots still to come on the show this morning. We're going to be talking to Nikki Symmons in just a little bit about the Irish hockey setup and their 3 series, a Softco series against Great Britain, starting tomorrow, games on Sunday and then on Tuesday as well. And we'll talk to Nikki about that in just a little bit. We're going to catch up with James Crombie, the sports photographer, who you'll know from having taken that murmuration photograph that everybody's been looking at over the last couple of weeks, has really catapulted him into the spotlight, and we'll get his thoughts on that photograph, and he's selected some others as well of his favourites over the last year and beyond that we'll get into. Really looking forward to that. That's coming up in just a little bit, and plenty more as well besides. But I do want to let you know too what's happening on Off the Ball over the weekend on the radio tomorrow from 1 o'clock. It's a really special Saturday panel. Cheltenham is upon us, so there's really only one place we could be from 1 tomorrow. It's a Cheltenham preview panel. It's Barry Geraghty, it's Katie Walsh, and it's Paddy Power, and it's going to mark your card clearly for the week ahead. And also, I'm sure there'll be plenty of stories and nostalgia as well. 3 great speakers there, and that is from 1 o'clock tomorrow on the radio. 3 to 5 as always. It's football all the way, and joining John will be Dan McDonald, Johnny Ward, and Stephen Elliott this week. That's 3 to 5 to keep across all the games in the Premier League. From 1 then on Sunday, in fact from 11:30 I should say on Sunday, it's our paper review. It'll be live streamed across Off the Ball social channels at 11:30. Sarah O'Donovan and Owen Conroy are going to join Joe for that. And then on the radio from 2 o'clock will be Leicester against Sheffield United. Nathan and Brian Kerr are going to have commentary of that. And then it's Arsenal Spurs North London Derby, 4:30. Stephen Doyle and Kenny Cunningham has been back in your radio over the last couple of weeks, and delighted to have him. And that'll be an absolute belter, I've no doubt about that. 2 teams going okay at the minute. And we'll have Six Nations updates as well of Scotland versus Ireland in the company of none other than Mike McCarthy. So that'll be all coming your way on OTB over the weekend. You can check that out on News Talk or indeed on the OTB Sports app. And speaking of OTB Sports, you can jump onto our website this morning where there's lots of latest stories from the world of sport. Manchester United won't see a penny of the £70 million from planned Glazer sale is the lead article there, so you can head up onto otbsports.com for more details on that. Peter Crouch and his Liverpool career, the papers had me dressed up as Jack Bauer, he says, in conversation with Nathan last night. Lowry changes grip after one of the worst spells of my career on the greens, admits the Irish golfer who's tipping along just nicely at the Players' Championship at Sawgrass. Judge angrily denies refs' accusations that he called him a cheat and something else, and reaction to the games last night. Manchester United, Tottenham, and plenty more as well, besides all up on the website. Just to give you a bit of a flavour as well of what's happening across the back pages this morning, there is some sort of a sense of what's going to happen with the Ireland team for the Scotland game of the Six Nations on Sunday that we've been talking about Alan Quinlan about just there. You can check that out. Just to let you know, the Irish Examiner this morning, Ronan O'Gara, it shouldn't be easier to accept defeat away from home, he says, challenging the usual norm that I don't know applies so much when there's no crowds in the grounds, the games away from home are a little bit tougher. Ringrose calls on Ireland teammates to come out of their shells. And Kenny banks on Kelleher as Randolph ruled out, writes John Fallon there as well. And we shall see about that, because there's also obviously doubts over the Liverpool goalkeeper as well. Brown hails €400 million deal with equity firm. Jerry Thornley writing in the Irish Times this morning. This is Philip Brown, the CEO of the IRFU, reacting to this takeover from CVC. Gibson Park in line to keep Murray out of the starting lineup. Also from Jerry Thornley there, he's got a possible team to play the Scots on Sunday. And that's in the Irish Times. Jones, no one is untouchable, writes the London Times this morning. The Telegraph, in fact, in relation to the England selection for their game at the weekend against France, with Elliot Daly and Jamie George both set to miss out. So that's a bit of a flavour of what's happening on some of the back pages this morning. We'll come back to the rest of that in just a little bit, but delighted to say now at 8:20, Andy Mitten from United We Stand joins us on the line. Good morning, Andy.
Good morning.
Late goal last night, and it ends 1-1, but it seemed fair enough.
Yeah, I think it was a fair result. If anything, Milan should have won the game. They were the better team, especially in the first half. Once again, Manchester United were slow to get going. They did go ahead and scored a wonderful goal, a pass from Bruno Fernandes, the type which he does so well. Picked out a little spot between defenders. And then Ahmad scored his first goal, 18 years old. Another player whose professional career started very close to Milan, just like Bruno's did. He was at Novara. Ahmad was at Atalanta. And that put United ahead until the 91st minute when Simon Kjaer, the Danish player, who I spoke to last year, actually, he was at Sevilla. He was also in the Sevilla team who knocked Manchester United out of the Champions League in 2018. He got a goal, and Dean Henderson probably should have saved it. He probably knows he should have saved it. So 1-1 going into the game at San Siro next week. I thought it was a little bit, given the status of both the clubs, a bit disappointing. The Europa League takes something away from it. Having no fans there takes something away from it. But here we are. I still think that the Europa League is worth winning for Manchester United. And I still wouldn't be surprised if United went to Milan and won the game. They didn't really turn up last night. It was a poor performance and contrasted completely with Sunday and that win at Manchester City.
Why was that, Andy? What was the main reason for that difference?
I listened to the interviews after the game, and the players, they basically said, we didn't play well. They didn't give specific reasons why. Looking at it from my perspective, I thought Milan were very much on the front foot. They created chances. I think that I wasn't convinced by the substitutions of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in the second half. Bringing attacking players off at 1-0 was a bit of a risk, especially how dangerous Milan had showed that they could be. And if you take Bruno Fernandes off, he went quite defensive. And that had its risks, and they were shown. As for the goal, I would agree with the manager that his defence were too deep. I think there's a feeling when the draw was made, and I asked him about this, of, oh no, it's AC Milan. And then like a reality strike in that actually they're not that good, or the perception is that they're not that good, especially with injuries and missing big players like Zlatan. And then they came to Old Trafford, and I thought they were really good. They've got a talented manager. I've been speaking to lots of people around Milan in the last couple of weeks, and they were gutted when they drew Manchester United. So you've got this contrast between Man United fans who are gutted they've drawn AC Milan because they think they're going out, and AC Milan fans even more gutted because they think they're also going out. So it's a weird psychology of the football fan, I think. But I'd still say United will be favourites. I don't feel like 2007 or 2005 going to San Siro where Milan are the best team in the world, and they were. And now I don't think they are. I think they've got a very good manager, they've got a very good goalkeeper, and I think United need to do what they've been doing all season, pull out the result when they need it, especially away from home. There's not going to be 60, 70, 80,000 fans creating that incredible stadium, the atmosphere in that stadium. And it's my favourite stadium in the world from the outside. It is so spectacular. It looks like a giant spaceship. From the inside, it needs money spending on it, absolutely. And there's not that anticipation given past trips to Milan. I can remember 10,500 United fans going there in 2005. There's none of that now. I'm going to be fortunate enough to go, and I don't know any other British journalists who can go because they can't get back into the UK. That's subject to me providing my Italian fiscal code so that I can have a PCR test. And I'm saying to the hospital yesterday, I don't have a fiscal Italian code. I'm not Italian. There are some humans on this planet who don't own Italian fiscal codes. Yeah, but if you don't have one, we can't have the test. So this is ridiculous. Yeah, we agree it's ridiculous. So what do you want me to do? Well, get a fiscal code. I'm not going to be able to get an Italian fiscal code. Okay, we'll try and get one for you. So another level of ridiculousness, which is, this is how it is when you're traveling or trying to travel as a journalist during the pandemic to do your job properly. I'm also going to Real Madrid Atalanta on Tuesday. That's being played in the training ground. But we're not letting you in until you're tested at the door. That's fine. I can deal with that. 2 intriguing games, actually. One is 1-1 and one is 1-0.
You're going to have a brand new passport saying Andy Mitten on it as you become a citizen of Italy next week. Just one thing on the team selection last night. I know he came on, but is it a little bit of a red flag at the moment when Fred doesn't start, that performances are quite stark with him and without him?
I think it's a good point, that. I don't think Fred's the best midfielder United have ever seen, but I think he plays in some of United's best results. And Nemanja Matic played last night, and his form is not where it was almost exactly a year ago. In fact, it was exactly a year ago today that United played their last game in Lask before the lockdown. And I watched Matic quite carefully, and he probably took too many touches. He was good in tighter situations, but ponderous and slow. That's what United were. And the midfield wasn't convincing. I don't think Scott McTominay had his best game. And then there seemed to be a change in tactics once those multiple substitutions were made. First substitution was at half-time with Martial because he was injured, and that gave a chance to Ahmad, and he took that really well. But those 3 substitutions on 73 minutes, I couldn't work out initially whether he'd gone to a 3 at the back and Shaw was in the middle, and then he went left, and then Tellers was in front of him, and then Tellers was behind him. I think with substitutions, you often view with the benefit of hindsight. In United's previous home game in Europe against PSG, Fred should have come off much earlier because he'd been booked and he was making those rash tackles. But Scott McTominay was fortunate to stay on the pitch last night. He was booked and then he made another challenge soon after that. Fred is becoming a talking point among United fans. I think he's good on his day. He's very good. But you can say that about so many of the players. And that's why the team is second and not top, because if you're going to be top, you've got to be outstanding most of the time. And just when the pressure starts to build, like a week ago, before the Manchester derby, and I put this to Ole Gunnar, I said, there's been a dip in form, and he denied that, and I disagree with him. There had been maybe he was talking about there hadn't been a dip in performances, and I was talking about a dip in results. And we looked at the word form in a slightly different way. But then he gets that result against City. United was so convincing against a City team who'd won 21 matches. Martial's fantastic. And then you think, okay, Martial's back, and last night he had a good shot after 8 minutes. Didn't do that much more. Mason Greenwood didn't have a shot on goal all game. If you're a Manchester United striker playing at home at Old Trafford in a European game, you've got to have shots on target. You just have to. And I don't think he had a particularly bad game, but you put all of the things I'm saying into the pot, and you get a performance like you got against Milan, a pretty flat one.
Well, this is really interesting now, because opportunity knocks for someone like Mason Greenwood, for Ahmad over the next little while, with Rashford, Martial, Cavani all struggling with fitness. Do you believe that they can be the attackers who can take Manchester United through this round and deep into this competition, basically?
I do, because I don't believe that Milan are at the level of PSG and capable of dominating Manchester United. United are better away from home, bizarrely. There's not going to be a crowd there. If Marcus Rashford is back and they're attacking, Cavani's injuries are starting to worry me a little bit. He's been stop-start all season, and his comments about his father the other day saying my son's not happy in Manchester. I looked at that in 2 ways. One, okay, it's just his dad's opinion. But 2, imagine you're Cavani, right? You've been living in Paris, which is not a bad city, and you move to Manchester. You can't speak the language, on the cusp of winter. You're not fit in a global pandemic. I think any city in the world would struggle to make you happy than Manchester in winter during a pandemic. And I speak to some of these people. I spoke to Bruno a few weeks ago. And the reality for them is they're often on the road because they're travelling so much, home and away games. Their families are at home. They can't leave the house. And nobody's getting the world's smallest violin out to have sympathy for the partners of millionaire footballers here. But I think it's a valid point. they're safe, they've got the health, that's all fantastic. But these are really, really odd times. And Cavani, I would love him to... He's been brilliant in some matches, especially Southampton away, but you're going to need these players against Milan to turn up, to put in a really good performance, because it's still AC Milan away. United need to score a goal. They've got the away goal now, and I'm pretty confident, far more confident than going there in 05 and 07. But the team needs to turn up. And what you can't have a repeat of is what happened in Leipzig, where the first 20 minutes were a disaster for Manchester United. And that cost them a Champions League place. And that's not good enough. Can't be a repeat. I think the Europa League is still worth winning, and the FA Cup. And there are a few comments I received last night. We should just concentrate on the league. I don't agree with that. I'm sorry. I think a trophy would make a big difference for Manchester United, be it Europa, be it the FA Cup, and a strong league finish. They're your best case scenarios. Your worst case is you got against Milan, you've got Leicester City away in the FA Cup, and there's a danger of it unravelling. But we could have said exactly the same thing last week before going to Manchester City. United got the result.
We mentioned Amad Diallo there, and the quality with which he took his goal last night was a real standout. One of the papers this morning, I don't know if it was a direct quote from Solskjaer, but was saying that he had unearthed a real diamond, which feels to be, I mean, he walked into a shop and he spent 19 million quid for the diamond. I'm sure they've been tracking him for a while. But will you talk to us, Andy, about, because United fans want to see him very much of him. I think it was only his third appearance for the first team last night and his first goal. What is his best position, and how big is the future for this guy?
I'll be honest, when I was tipped off about him last August, I'd never heard of him. So I started doing some research, and I sat on it for a few days because I couldn't find anything at all. And I put calls in. And one guy came back to me who's a scout and said that he'd watched him for Atalanta in the UEFA Youth League and he'd been really good. So I wrote the story, but I actually buried the story. I put it in the middle of an article I wrote, one of my columns for GQ, saying United are interested in him. And maybe I did that because if you don't bury stuff, you just get thousands of lunatics saying, you said he'd sign, why is he not signed? You're a disgrace, you're an absolute fraud. But United were interested in him and they signed him, and it was protracted. He wasn't able to come until January. The club official who went over there to meet him, John, who's been promoted this week to a very important position, he had to come back to Manchester and do his 14 days quarantine just to get the paperwork through. He needed to go over to Italy. He plays on the right. He's fast. He changed his name in October. He didn't want to be known as Amad Traore anymore, but Amad Diallo, or just Amad. And right wing has been a problem position for Manchester United. That's why the team were looking to strengthen and talked about Jadon Sancho, looked at other players, considered taking Kingsley Coman on loan as an option who could play there. And now they've got Facundo Pellistri and Amad. Amad is the one who's made a really good impact, training really well, came straight into the reserve team, played in that 6-3 win away at Liverpool, looked better than the other reserves, even though he's only 18. And there are slight complications because the young players have got to train in a different bubble to the first team. And the reason Pellistri went on loan, because he was training with the first team and then not being in the matchday squad and then travelling to away games by himself because he couldn't be in the bubble. So it's not easy because footballers need to play football. Amad looks like he's broken in with the first team. He's going to get some first team minutes. And if he can do what he did last night, United fans love stuff like that. 18-year-old kid. You know, Marcus Rashford was a kid 5 years ago and he made his name in this competition with those 2 goals against Midtjylland. And you often hear cries of, put the kids on, give him a try. And I'm actually with the manager here. He knows better than a lot of fans who just want to see more of young players by over-risking them, by putting them on for too long. Amad probably would have got 15 minutes last night, but needs must. Martial was injured and he got on. So just as Rashford got his chance because of injuries in 2016, so Amad got his chance. And the goal was the highlight. I think Harry Maguire and his manager also said he's got a lot to learn. And you can see that, but I think he's in a good place to learn. Yeah, good. Well, I don't think we should go over the top after what we've seen because it's still exceptionally early, but I'm encouraged that United are scouting and signing these exciting young players, and there's several more of them as well.
You mentioned the staff promotion during the week, Andy, a football director, a technical director. My question here is, how different is this from the director of football that was touted 3 years ago? Is it just a split of that role to ensure that no one person has more power than another?
I remember writing that director of football story in December 17. I remember I was on a train to Basel for a European game, checking it out, and the answers came back to me that it's not like a director of football with any role in the football. It was more an administrative role because the administration was becoming too much for one person or two people. And it never really sort of happened. And if you're going to ask me to define director of football, there's so many different definitions of it. And Arsene Wenger was one of them who said, what is it? And at some clubs, Sevilla being the best example, with Monchi, that person has more power than the manager in terms of recruitment. And he says to the manager, after some discussion, but he holds the power, I've brought this player in, work him into your plans. I think it works well at Manchester City with the dynamic between Bergerstein and Pep Guardiola. They play together, they trust each other. It's a normal model on the continent. It's not always successful. I've seen 4 people at Barcelona in that role in the last few years. And there's a sporting director, and I know a guy who was favourites to become the sporting director at Barca, and I asked him, he went, no, it's the job above I like. So there's jobs within jobs, and it's often anonymous and positions or not public positions. At United, I think that the addition of Darren Fletcher is a plus. I think he's intelligent. He's an avid football watcher. I think he'll become a good manager. He's had a few bumps after his time at Stoke City. I've seen him a lot at games recently, sat at the back of the stand, observing from a different angle. My feeling about him has always been a positive one, even from interviewing him when he was a player. I'm not saying he was keen class in terms of interviews, but he was exceptionally interesting. And to the point that 10 years ago, he came up to me in pre-season in Washington and said, I gave you a bit too much in that interview, didn't I? And I said, that's my job to get too much. I'm really pleased that there's a good role for him. He worked with the kids before Christmas, and I think he's got a good relationship with Solskjaer. That's really important because I don't think Ole Gunnar wanted a sporting director any more than Jose Mourinho did or Louis van Gaal did, because you're basically saying to someone, I'm going to bring someone in and take away 30% of your power or 40% of your power or 20% of your power. So I think Fletcher is good. John Murtaugh's been at the club since 2013, done a lot behind the scenes, instrumental in setting up the women's team. I went to see the women's team a few months ago. He was the only club official there. He didn't need to be there at League in December. And he, as I said earlier on, he was a man who went to Bergamo to sort out Ahmad. I mean, I know him. He's an intelligent man. He's a Manchester lad. I went to see him at the Cliff a few years ago because he asked me to. And I spent 4 hours with him. And he's like, you know, I don't want to take too much of your time. I'm thinking that this is really interesting for me. Never mind you taking my time. And he's looking at football across the board. He's been a point of contact for players' parents, for agents. So critics of him would say, you know, he wasn't a professional footballer, and they'll also say he's Ed Woodward's man. I think the proof will be in the pudding here. I think if United improve and I hear enough about them doing good jobs, then it'll be seen as a good thing. And if Manchester United is 17th in a year's time in the table, there'll be mutiny and people saying this is disgraceful. It's all based on results, really, even when you're in their position. But one thing Fletch can do is, if United spot a player, he can talk to the player and say, we want you to come into this role and do this and do that, him or Ole Gunnar. And there's been criticisms that United have not had football people in there, not had enough football people in there. Matt Judge is not a football person, but Matt Judge, all he does is negotiate the contracts. He he just gets an order saying, we're interested in this man. And he has no opinion on the football side of it. He's a numbers man. So I'm pretty encouraged about it. I thought the reaction was quite interesting. It's quite negative. There's so much negativity among Man United fans. And I think like the pandemic plays into that a little bit. And I think there's always been negativity. One thing I've learned in 31 years of doing United We Stand is that a lot of people will never, ever be happy. I can remember receiving complaints in April 2008, people saying they've got it all wrong. This is a month before they won the league in the European Cup. It's all wrong. It's not what it was. And I see these recurring themes all the time. And I think my job as a journalist is to try and find out the truth and not be drawn too much into that. Because I've been reading for 30 years people complaining that the atmosphere is not what it was. I'm thinking, maybe they were saying the same thing in the 80s and the 70s and the 60s and the 50s and the 40s as well. So there's a lot of people working at the club now. There's 1,000 people working at Manchester United. There's more people working on the football side than ever. The proof's going to be in the pudding. The recruitment has got to be smarter than it has been. Manchester City have recruited better than Manchester United. And you do good recruitment, not just by spotting players, but by developing relationships like City have got with Benfica, really high level. Some of the coaches you've never heard of at City came from Benfica. And Benfica's a football factory. Get into those people. It's not just about the agents. It's not just about knowing Mendes or Raiola, the super agents with the best players. You've got to know the clubs as well. If you've got a level of information where you've got someone at somewhere like Benfica saying, we've got this 18-year-old called Ruben Diaz coming through and he is incredible. Pay attention to that and get him before City. But it's cutthroat, absolutely cutthroat. And the two people at the top of the tree trying to get the best players are based 3 miles apart.
Yeah, we should watch with interest the progress of Fletcher and the club in general. Andy, thanks a million as always.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Andy Mitten on the line there from United We Stand with reaction to the game last night. Plenty of comments coming in about it as well. And obviously they've West Ham at the weekend. We shall see what happens with all of that. We have lots to come. We're going to talk hockey in the company of Nikki Symmons very shortly ahead of that soft goal series upcoming starting tomorrow in Belfast. We have Crappy Quiz on the way. We've Nathan in conversation with Peter Crouch, so plenty still to come. And do keep your comments coming into us here on OTB AM. We are live in association with Gillette, giving you the confidence to Good Morning Start with Gillette, which give you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. We are going to talk to James Crombie next. He is a sports photographer and has had a couple of brilliant photographs outside of the world of sport hit the headlines over the last little while, so he's up next. But before that, a little bit of John Hartson in your morning is exactly what you need, and he's been speaking to Nathan on Off the Ball last night about Roy Keane being linked with the Celtic job.
Celtic have not put up a fight. It's 21 points with 7 games to go. You know, they have won the league before the split. You know, so that's the type of manager that's needed. Now, you mentioned Roy Keane. Roy would be excellent. I think he'd be well respected amongst the players. He would have learned a lot in terms of what he's achieved up to now.
Would you not be concerned that he hasn't managed a team for a decade?
No, not really, because I think, you know, he's come from an assistant role. I wouldn't be concerned, and you know me, if I didn't think Roy wasn't the person that could galvanise the team and get them going and organise, then I would be the first one to say that. But I think Roy would be good. I also think somebody like Eddie Howe played brilliant football at Bournemouth, kept them in the Premier League, plays exciting football on the front foot, you know, with Callum Wilson and Joshua King and these type of players. He had good defences as well at Bournemouth. So I think he would be good. I think he's got a lot of experience. I believe he's actively looking for a job. He's not in a job.
That is John Hartson on the show with Nathan last night. It is 8:45 on this Friday morning, and I'm delighted to say we're joined now by the 2021 Irish Press Photographer of the Year, James Crombie from Info. Good morning to you, James.
Good morning. How are you getting on, guys?
Thanks a million for jumping on the call. He's the guy behind that photograph is really what we need to tell you this morning, and we'll come to that in a minute. But we're delighted that you could take the time to jump on with us, James. And we've asked you to pick out some of your favourite photographs of the last year, and you kindly invited us to dip into your back catalogue, and we've done that as well and picked out a few. So we want to get into them and get through them. But I found myself yesterday. I was sent on the link of how you got into sports photography at all, and it was a fairly high profile and interesting path. Will you give us a brief reminder about what it was all about?
Yeah, I done a reality TV show in 2006 on RTE called No Experience Required. So they were looking for a trainee sports photographer. So bit of a mad start to my career. Been following around for about a month. But I was lucky enough to actually win the show, and 15 years later, I'm still here doing it. So, mad start.
Yeah, it's incredible looking back at it, given that what we know now, and having your job interview laid bare in front of the nation is probably not something that anybody would need to have to look back on. We mentioned that photograph, and we'll show these to our viewers as we work through them. The Murmurations photograph is the one that really caught the nation gripped the nation over the last couple of weeks. I think it's fair enough to say. Have you enjoyed because I mean, like you take amazing photographs. We'll get into some of that over the next little while, but this one has had an impact with the country in a way maybe that few others could have.
Yeah, it was just phenomenal. Like I've probably had one other image that's kind of gone viral. This went viral. My phone didn't stop for about 5 days. I needed it to stop in the end because I was trying to reply to everyone, and it went kind of worldwide as well, which is kind of a bit of a mad occurrence. I actually had a job on Thursday for one of my clients, an 8-hour job in the middle of this going viral, and I had people ringing me for interviews, and I was photographing a fairly high-profile GA player doing an interview with the Irish Examiner. So it was a bit of a mad day, but we got through it anyway. Hopefully the pictures turned out okay for the client as well.
You found yourself in the unusual scenario where you're the one saying, "Listen, do you mind? Just do you hold on there a few minutes? I just got to go and do this interview."
It was crazy. Like a former footballer of the year, I had to say that as I was photographing him. So yeah, it was okay.
Just in terms of, because I've looked at little bits and pieces how it's come about. This was not sort of you out for a bit of a stroll and found yourself at this opportunistic moment. You've been plotting this one.
Yeah. Myself and a good friend of mine, Colin Hogg, has spent nearly 60 nights out in the lake over the course of the last 3 months. So it was a lot of trucking through fields and trying to find the birds, and they don't really have a dedicated pattern, so we had to try to find out what the pattern was. But I'm a sports photographer. That's my job. I would never have had this opportunity apart from all the time we've had. You know what I mean? It's been we had a lot of free time in the last 12 months, so it was great to have that opportunity.
And was it the express intention, like you obviously know the area, I think you're from around the area, was it with the express intention of chasing the Murmurations? Was that your intention going about it, or was it something that materialized while you were out there?
No, we wanted to get a Murmuration shot. I knew there was a good shot in it, but I didn't exactly know it would be this spectacular. I got a couple of shots I was really happy with over the course of the 60 days, but it was good kind of therapy anyway, because it was just something to do every day for 2 hours and get wet, and you know what I mean. And like, it was rain, snow, fog. We seen every conditions out there, and some spectacular sunsets. Some days where you couldn't see 2 feet in front of you, but look, it was it's just a bit of a project, and it was really enjoyable, you know.
It's interesting that you said it. Sorry, Adrian. It's interesting that you said that essentially the free time inspired this, that you've actually made such a massive opportunity out of what a lot of people would view as something that is holding back opportunities when it comes to the pandemic. I mean, like in previous years, I presume you'd be up and down the country in all sorts of different places, and you're missing out on things like this.
Yeah, like as a sports photographer in Ireland, you're quite busy because we're quite unique in this country. We've got GA, rugby, soccer, and horse racing, a bit of everything. So it's not a quiet country for sports. So you'd never have that. I'd never have that amount of time. And when I do have free time, my wife wouldn't let me go off wandering, trying to take other pictures. You know what I mean? So like we have 4 young kids here, so she's a bit of a saint actually for being understanding. You know.
the photograph itself and the shape that the birds materialized into, and apologies for the slightly ludicrous question, do you know, have they any sense of what they're doing there, or is that just something that just happened?
I have no idea. Like throughout the 60 days, you were seeing shapes, and you might say, "Oh, that looks like a rabbit," or "That looks like a dolphin," or so. I don't know. Like, you know, sometimes when this sounds a bit silly, but when you look at the clouds, you kind of say, "Oh, that looks like something."
Yeah.
So I don't really know. I'd like to think they did, but they're definitely forming groups and clusters to scare away predators, because. But when they done that, there would have been a sparrowhawk or something in the area. This is all new to me in the last. I haven't really been a wildlife guy, but when you go out there so much, you see the slightly bigger bird chasing them, and they get very excited when a bigger bird's in the area. So they're doing something. Whether they actually meant to form a big bird, I don't know. The video, it's majestic what they did. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because that would make total sense, that they were trying to make some sort of threatening shape to ward off. And there was some doubters as well, James, but you had the video too as hard evidence.
So lucky. Like, we've been out early. That was nearly our 60th night, and that was the first time we'd properly done video, which is
right.
The irony of it all. So just so lucky we had it, because there's always going to be doubters. There's always going to be doubters. But I have the original files, and I don't really like to entertain people. I know myself that there was no messing going on. So look, what can you do?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely class, and you really gave the nation a bit of a lifter as well. Everybody was talking about it, and everybody enjoyed it. We would be obviously familiar enough with your back catalogue as well, and as I said, we asked you to dip in a little bit, and there's a few that you picked out, and there's a few that we picked out. Croghan Hill was another one that everybody was talking about last year, and if I'm right, it was all about timing and a tight window on planning again.
Yeah, it was the super moon, I think, last April. So we just started our major lockdowns, and everyone was talking about the super moon for about a couple of days. It's a picture I thought of. I literally said to someone 10 years ago, I want to silhouette someone hurling against the moon. And we said it was a good idea, but again, not having the time to be able to do anything. For the space of a month from the first lockdown, for the first 6 weeks, I had no jobs. There was nothing in my schedule. So I got on to the same friend I'd done this commemorations with. He's a geophysicist, so he's good at calculating angles and, distances and stuff. So he was literally able to calculate. It really helped. Like, you'd love to say, I was just walking by the field and I seen a guy hurling on the moon. We had to get, tripods, long lenses, exact time, hoping for a clear night. It's my twin brother hurling on the hill. So so you'd love to say it's natural, you're just seeing some guy up there, but I think you could be waiting there for 1,000 years to actually stumble across someone hurling on the moon at the exact same time. So, but it went crazy in Ireland, and the irony is I actually gave him a soccer ball to go up with as well. Okay, and I says, okay, I don't think the world. I kind of had an idea this picture was going to go pretty mad. And I said, I don't think the world's going to get hurling. So I says, look, have a soccer ball and I'll get you to try to do a bicycle kick or something when you're up there, or a header or something. And I was on my earphones to him up in the hill. And I said, run forward, back, jump, do your hurl thing. And then I said, okay, head the football. And he goes, I let the football drop, and it went down the hill. So he had we've never got the football back because it was pitch dark. But yeah, the UK and the American market had to deal with a hurler and try to figure it out.
That's class. How long did that session, how many pucks and laps did he have to give?
He got about 60 seconds before the moon went over the hill. It was so quick. It was just phenomenal. Like, you can play back through all the files I took, and you can just literally see the moon coming up over the hill so quick. So we had a very, very tight window, but that's why the calculations were so precise. If he was, 500 meters away, I don't think he would have met it there in time. We just needed it just as the moon crested the hill. So yeah, and we had one shot at it because the night before I went down to test it on my own just to see what it worked. And it was too bright, and then the next night it was cloudy, so there was one opportunity for that moon to be in that exact spot with the clean hill. So yeah, it was very lucky again, but you have to make your own luck as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, it's class. There was a couple more that really spoke to what's going on over the last 12 months, and we might tie these ones together. The first one is the guy in the ladder in the graveyard. Where is that?
Yeah. That is in Dr. Hyde Park in Roscommon.
Right.
And again, a game I'd never be at. It was the Roscommon Senior Football Championship semi-finals. Like we would do county finals, but we there's so many on in that space of time generally when it's on. So there was very little on that day, and I said to the office, look, I might go down and do the Roscommon games, like Bridges were playing. There's some high-profile, teams there, and there's obviously nobody there, but I could see this guy at the back of the wall, and I knew it was quite a high wall. I didn't know there was a graveyard there, but I could just see his head popping up and down like this. And it became a bit of a project. The whole lockdown was trying to get the guys outside looking in, if you know what I mean. So I took a bit of a stroll at the game, we had a few pictures in the game. It wasn't as important if I missed something really important. I couldn't believe he was in a graveyard up a 20-foot ladder. And I was like, so I didn't send it to him. I kind of went around the back and I took a shot. He's obviously celebrating something happening. And then I went up to him and I asked him, you sure? Just try to be safe there, man. It was very precarious. And he wouldn't give me his name, but his actually daughter, he ended up being interviewed in the Roscommon Herald, and his daughter rang me yesterday to congratulate me and stuff. So he's taking the fame now. So.
And are you worried when you're going out to do that? Are you worried that I'm going to have to ring the office now and tell them that I missed that thing on the pitch because I was in a graveyard taking a photograph of some lad's arse who's having a look at how does that work?
If it was Munster, Leinster, or it was Ireland, England in the Six Nations, I probably wouldn't be able to just go for a wander in case the important moment happened for me. But when you kind of know what you need out of certain games, you know what I mean? And I had enough stuff in that game, so yeah. That picture's lasted a lot longer than any other picture from that game. So
that's true. And the one with the similar theme with the one with the lads on the trolleys.
Yeah, down in
beautiful picture
down in Austin Stack again. The Kerry guys are very clever at getting to see games, and there was more cars and vans and parked the whole way along that wall at Dunstores. So you can see there was lots of people watching it from outside, and then technically they weren't doing anything wrong because they were standing on their van outside. But I've seen a bunch of these young guys. So I went out and had a look. There was a bunch of young guys all running around the car park with trolleys. What are they up to? And they were all going over and they put all the trolleys against the wall, and it was fairly precarious. Like they could barely see over, but it was so funny. It's not contrived at all. I just said behind them, and there you are, all the young guys with their white socks and black trainers all watching the game. I think the Austin Stacks, I think the club contacted me afterwards to say that it was like 7 or 8 of their under-16s who were trying to watch their colleague, because I think he's under-17 minor now, so they were trying to watch their club mates playing. So they were able to name everyone in the pictures. It was quite funny. Yeah.
That's brilliant. I wondered, with that, and you mentioned your pal in the graveyard and he's reluctant to give your name and that sort of thing. So you go up to him afterwards almost, do you, and say, listen here, I've taken this picture, you all right with that?
You try not to disturb the scene. In that scenario, you couldn't see his face anyway, so it was grand, you know what I mean? But there was a few people during lockdown where they'd be peering in through gates, and I thought they were good shots, and I'd take a photograph and just, no, don't put that out, don't send it out. Right. You don't do it. You respect people. If they don't want to, you just I'm not to really achieve by annoying them that way. But most people, embrace and enjoy it. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I wondered about that, and there's a couple more upcoming as well that we can talk about in this regard. Even outside of the COVID thing, because I would understand people would be like, oh, listen, I was kind of bending the rules a bit. Don't put me in the paper sort of thing. Would you have much experience before that of people saying, just for whatever reason, you've got a great photograph and you're like, geez, this is gonna be brilliant, and they're like, no, I'd rather you didn't use that. Would you have much experience of that, or typically are people willing to play ball?
People are generally willing to play ball. I think if you approach them right, I've done a lot of I done the 2 Euros, 12 and 16 as a fan photographer, as well as doing the games. But I didn't have to go to training and press conference. Probably the best gig you'll get as a soccer correspondent or as a soccer journalist. So I was able to party with them, and 90% of the time they were fine about it, you know what I mean? So yeah, the odd person will say, I remember photographing someone in a swimming pool in Cyprus. I was over in Nicosia for Ireland, played Cyprus in 2009, and there was only about 2 Irish fans in the same hotel I was in. And I asked them to take their picture, and they said, we're actually off sick from work, so you can't take our picture. So apart from that, you don't get too many refusals,
Yeah. Well, Eoin has plenty of experience as well of tracking fans, don't you, Eoin, at big tournaments?
I think it's quite on the same. don't think it's quite on the same artistic level somehow as what James is bringing to the table somehow.
It's a great gig. It's a great gig as a photographer, like, because you're literally paid to be a fan, and you know, you get your picture in the paper, and yeah, so it's great. You come a little bit of a, like I'm going to say, you come well known by all the fans because they'll have seen you getting someone else in the paper, and they want to be in the paper. And I said, well, you know, do something semi-stupid, you might get in the paper.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. The tipped Mayo All-Ireland semi is another one we want to talk about, and there was barely a soul in the ground, obviously, but the atmosphere is really hopping off this photograph. Did you know what you wanted, James, before you went into that, or how did that come about?
Yeah, I spent about 15 minutes on the ground during that game trying to get that shot. I kind of slightly remember the game was slightly one-sided, so again, you kind of judge yourself when you're at a game. If it goes a bit one-sided, you know, the anticipation of the really important moment kind of goes. If Mayo scored on a goal, you know, if it's a tight game, 1-goal game, you have to make sure you get it. But you know, if it's not, you can be a little bit more creative, I suppose. So, and obviously foggy night, December, All Ireland semi-final, like such a bizarre experience for everyone there. You know, I assume it was for the players as well. So I was definitely trying to capture that kind of, you know, bleak December empty crowd thing. So yeah, I'm delighted the way it worked out, you know.
It was really weird to watch on television as well, James. Like, it was the foggiest I can remember a game in Croke Park. It was hard. It was actually hard to see at times where you were thinking to yourself, is this game going to get cancelled almost? So I presume that presents a whole range of technical difficulties for you on the day.
It does, but photographers, like, we'd love to work in snow, fog, rain, anything interesting that breaks from the norm. Like, we dive at it. Every one of us said, geez, I wish it snowed today or something. Like, it's terribly uncomfortable to work at. It's horrible, but the pictures are so much better when it does, you know what I mean? Like, you know, steam coming out of people's mouths and stuff. We want that creative, I suppose, angle to a game, you know, so we're always hoping that something like that happens.
Well, that leads us perfectly on to the next one, because the Connacht Rugby, and we're dipping back now, obviously pre-COVID, at a time where people could be in proximity of each other and not have to worry about tests and all this sort of malarkey. But the Connacht photograph in Russia from a number of years ago, like, it was that, I presume that was the sort of thing that you just couldn't plan for. You were almost, was it a case of walking in the area and thinking, here we go, or how did that come about?
That was an unbelievable trip. Yeah, and obviously the picture turned out really well, but like the whole trip was like, we were over in Russia, and I can't remember what part of them, like is in Siberia, so we're right up Krasnoyar. Like a training, John Muldoon's beard had frost on it, literally frost on the tentacles. It was just so incredibly cold. Like I remember sitting in the corner of that game, and a Russian photographer taking pictures of me. I was like, what the hell? I think because they kept walking around to stay warm, and I was sitting down as we usually would, not trying to move. But slowly getting, I think, early onset pneumonia. But I remember Jack Carty came up to me at one stage and was kind of slightly worried about me, because he was actually warming up, and he gave me a hand warmer, and he says, "Are you sure you're okay, man?" I said, "Yeah, I think I am." But then I strolled around near the end of the game, and I could see during the game that the Martin Joyce, the kit man, had got all the guys' blankets and stuff. So I said, it looked like such a bizarre picture. So I went over and took it, and it was well received by everyone, and it really summed up the trip, I think.
Yeah, caught it brilliantly. All right. This racing punter was a man who's been at many's the meet, and certainly not afraid to let people know about it. There's almost, this again might be a slightly ludicrous one, but it looked almost like, and I don't know if I'd been looking at the Murmurations photograph too long, but there's almost something bird-like to it, like the plumage and the eyes and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's I really like that picture. Believe it or not, I have that picture in my bathroom at home, so I don't know what that says about me, but I think it's a perfect bathroom picture. It's a really kind of, you know, he's a good character. It's a great picture. It's a really enjoy. I love taking that picture. I just think all those things, and there is some kind of inhuman thing about it. You know what I mean? It was enjoyable.
Was he pointing the binoculars directly at you, or were you at an angle almost?
Yeah, no, like. Yeah. He was a punter. He was waiting. He wanted to get his photograph taken. He was kind of bumping into all of us photographers. You know, you get some people like that. You know, oh, sorry. You get that a bit at certain events. You know, where people want, but like, you know, you just have to try capture it to a certain extent. So yeah, he pointed right at me. So it is set up like, to a certain extent.
Two people who probably, in hindsight, didn't want their photograph taken. The very famous, one of the most famous scenes in the modern age of Irish sport, I would say. In fact, the Johnny Sexton Ronan O'Gara moment. And I wondered about how this one came about, because the game itself, James, about 30 minutes in, Leinster were 3 points up, but you were clearly feeling that Leinster were in the ascendancy because you were perched down in the Munster try area, or just behind it. You were ready for something to happen, and obviously not quite at that level, but something to happen in that position of the pitch.
I wish it was all anticipation and I knew it was going to happen, but we actually had 4 photographers, one in every corner. And sometimes you just have to get lucky. Do you know what I mean? That it happens in your corner. I think Contepone had just gone off injured, and it was a real... it was kind of a watershed moment in Irish out half history, when the two guys kind of collided, and it was actually great to see they actually became friends in the end. I loved the documentary where they were getting, trips, or they were sharing trips in Racing and stuff. But there was a bit of something in that at that very moment. I think at the time, I don't even know. I think you don't actually realise you're capturing it because you're photographing the celebration. And then when you look at the back of your camera, you go, oh, there's something here. So, that shot, again, kind of lived from that game. But what an occasion. Croke Park, Leinster, Munster, full house, both teams probably at their pomp, you know what I mean? It was a phenomenal day. Yeah.
What's next for you? What have you got planned?
I'm doing Munster tonight and Connacht tomorrow, so no
Joey
rest.
Carberry, I presume, will be
he's going to be a topic. Hopefully Joey comes back as strong as he was before. I think what a great talent. So it'd be great to see him get the break. He's had it not very many players have had to go through what he's gone through. So it should be good tonight. Like, again, the games are strange with no crowds, you know what I mean? I can't wait, firstly, as a photographer, apart from being able to park at the front door and having no one giving out to you for getting in their way, and having no traffic problems afterwards, which are all benefits, I suppose. You need atmosphere back in these games, and we all want that. Fans want to be back, players want fans back, and the media want fans back as well. So hopefully, before the end of the year, we can start seeing that.
Well, listen, keep up the absolutely brilliant work. You've really captured the nation over the last while and beyond from some of the photographs we've shown there. Look forward to seeing your work from tonight and again over the coming months. And an absolute pleasure catching up with you to get the story behind the pictures over the last while. James Crombie, thanks a million.
Brilliant, guys. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot. And we're going to talk hockey next with Nikki Symmons after these.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
This is OTB Sports Radio.
For Brady, in American football, it is incredibly specific and very, very few people get to hit him. He should be in an armchair ride. He runs on, he runs off. It's about having a really good arm. Rugby is multidiscipline. They call him a quarterback. That's lazy journalism in my view. Johnny is our best out half.
Off the Ball, Saturdays from 1 on OTB Sports Radio. Listen live on the OTB Sports app.
Get ready for the Cheltenham Festival with the Boyle Sports app, with a special offer guaranteed on every race, every day of the festival, plus extra places on each way bets over all 4 days. The Boyle Sports app has got you covered. Need to study up? Check out our Racing Post insights or watch our exclusive video previews with Cheltenham Gold Cup winning jockey Robbie Power. The Cheltenham Festival on the faster than ever Boyle Sports app. Boyle Sports. This is betting. Gamble responsibly. See gamblingcare.ie. 18 plus.
Tom Watson, you're welcome to Golf Weekly.
Hey, this is going to be fun.
Very happy to say European captain and, of course, 3-time major winner Padraig Carrington joins us.
Today's special guest on Golf Weekly is Lee Westwood.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I'm honoured and delighted.
Let's bring in Paul McGinley, who joins us now. Paul, you're very welcome.
Shane Lowry, how are you keeping?
I'm good, thanks, yeah. Well, I'm as good as I can be.
The biggest names in golf and Ireland's best golf podcast, Golf Weekly, now exclusively available on Patreon. Go to otbsports.com/Golf Weekly to sign up now.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
All right, it's coming up on 9:10 on this Friday morning. You're watching OTB AM, and it's time to talk international hockey now. Ireland are going to take on Great Britain in a 3-game Softco series. It starts tomorrow. Games to follow in Belfast on Sunday, and then on Tuesday, delighted to say former international Nikki Symmons joins us on the line. Morning, Nikki.
Good morning. How are you? Great to have you.
Good,
Great
thanks.
to be on. Thank you.
No, delighted to have you on. We wanted to look ahead to the games and to get a bit of a fix, I suppose, on where Ireland are at. Maybe as difficult as that has been, given that it's been a long time since the last game. But just the squad that's been named and the injuries that are there, it seems to be a bit of a mix of sort of the elder heads and then some younger players coming in. Is it a bit more unsettled than they would like, given such a monster year that's ahead, or is there enough games to get that out of the system before the bigger games kick in later in the year?
Well, I guess it's not the usual way to prepare for especially Olympic Games, even though we've never been there, but for a big major tournament. So it's going to be a bit uneasy for them, having lost a couple of players like Zoe Wilson, for example. But I think, it's still time for them, and also they're trying to figure out the best combination of players. And it's always good to have some young players in there, uncapped players, to kind of make sure that the senior players are putting in their best performances as well, which is what you need coming up to this very important few months ahead of the games.
You mentioned Zoe Wilson. Talk to us a little bit about the impact of her loss, and Serena Barr out as well. What that means, like a couple of bankers for the team, and with top level experience as well. And Zoe Wilson particularly is out for the longer term.
Yeah, for sure. And being so young still, but such an amazing player at the time, and so important for their qualifier and even the World Cup as well. So yeah, big loss. And I'm sure it's not just a loss of her playing, but also how it's a pretty sad thing to happen just before the games, So I think it's a bit of a blow for mentally as well for the team. And you're always worried about that, whether there'll be more injuries, and hopefully there will not be any more injuries. But yeah, I think that can be a big blow to the team. But I think they're very strong. We know that. They come back and fight a lot. So I think they're a very strong team. They're very well together, and I think they'll be fine.
Where are they at in terms of the profile? We mentioned about how settled they are from the great success that they had a couple of years ago. Where are they at, do you think, Nikki, in terms of their trajectory? And I mean that in terms of the expectation of what they might be able to achieve this year.
Yeah, I mean, again, like you said, expectation as well, that's on their shoulders too, to perform because of what we had in the last couple of years and how good they've been playing. And then without any games for the last few months or years, it's very difficult too for them to really gauge, or anyone to gauge, where any team, in fact, not just the Irish team, where any team are. But they did have a good series against Spain, which I think was very, very encouraging, especially when they came down from 2-0 down to get a good draw. So I think there's definitely, really great potential there. I think they're training really well. I've heard a lot. I've been watching a little bit on their social as well. It looks like they're training well. They're showing lots of good clips and great skills happening. And I think, they just have to keep positive. It's a really, really difficult time for all athletes at the moment in every sport. But if they stick together, I think everyone seems to be in the same boat, right? So if they stick together, I think they'll be strong. And playing GB this weekend is going to be huge and hugely important for them, especially for players who've not got that many caps or uncapped. It's going to be a massive experience for them, and really, really good preparation for the Euros first, and then Olympic Games.
So what have you heard, Nikki, in terms of their preparation, despite the lack of games over the last few months, when it comes to Ireland's preparations versus other elite countries in Europe?
Well, I think, in fairness, like you just said, it's been a bit different from other countries, like the Netherlands, for example. We went back to club, so we've had some players there, obviously. One player, one goalkeeper, Aisha. So that's been good. But so those players have had club experience, and I was thinking about it before I came on, and that's such a nice part about playing international and club, that you go back to club, you play a different game, you can really let loose on the club scene as well. So that's a very tricky situation to be in as well, where you're just stuck with your national team in training games, and that's very difficult to get past. But as I said, they did have good games against Spain, and I think that was a really good test for them, seeing how they were going to be. And this weekend will be vital for that. The UK, our GB team coming over, they haven't been over since, I don't know when it was. I think I played the last time they were over, so it's going to be a really tough competition. But it looks like we've got actually quite a bit more experience on our side compared to the GB team, as in caps wise. So I think potentially there's a win in us there.
What will Team GB's expectation be from this year? Like, their expectation when it comes to hockey is obviously through the roof every year the Olympics come around. Like, is there a pressure on them to ensure that they wipe the floor with Ireland this weekend, that they win goals this summer? Is that how high the bar is for this team?
Yeah, I would assume so, especially when with all hockey teams, you know, the money that comes in from government, you've got always have that pressure on you to perform. And even if you don't perform once, it's like, oh, you're not playing well. So there's always that pressure constantly there for funding wise, which is very hard for all the players. But so they don't escape from that in the UK. So I think they'll have a lot of pressure on. And as we said, and I think Shirley mentioned it, they haven't been over a lot to play Ireland, and even though it's only a little hop across the water, we rarely played them. So there's always that side of it too, that they probably think they're too good for us. Sometimes that has been over the years as well, even at underage level. So I think, they're going to have a lot of pressure on to beat us at the weekend.
I, for one, am astonished that there would be any British arrogance.
Never.
Away from the possible outcome, Nikki, Katie Mullen was talking during the week about the style of hockey that Great Britain play being similar maybe to what they might face come the Euros, and Ireland obviously themselves maybe developing more of an attacking game under Sean Dancer. With all that in the pot, when people are tuned in, and the games are free to air live this weekend so people can tune in and watch them, with all that in the pot, what sort of games do you think in terms of like tactically and that kind of thing were we likely to see?
Well, I'd hope we'll try everything they've been doing on the training pitch. And I've read quite a lot of the girls, even just blogs or tweets, and they do want to do that. They want to see what they've been doing on the training field on the pitch, because there is sometimes teams will go into these games and maybe not show everything, but hopefully they will. I mean, they just need to let loose. They need to get it out of their system. They haven't played for a long time. So actually seeing what they're doing on the training field against the top opposition would be really, really useful. And I think there's no point in holding things back. With GB, the style hasn't really changed over the years, but now they've got a new coach recently with Mark Hager. So I assume they'll probably have changed a little bit. And the types of players, like you're talking about the Olympic gold medalists, but there's not that many there that were in Rio. So there's still quite a new bunch of players. So it'll be quite a different team from Rio. And now it's 5 years ago, so very different again. I think Ireland hopefully will keep that continue on to be an attacking team. I think that Sean's bringing that in very well, and hopefully that will keep going. And they just have to be mindful of defence, though. There's some very feisty players on the GB team that can score goals, so they just need to be aware of that.
And what do you think, finally, before we wrap, Nikki? What does success look like in terms of the outcome for Ireland over the weekend and into Tuesday?
Well, this weekend, I mean, obviously you always want to win, right? But I think they'll probably focus on different things, like I said, like what they're doing on the training field, what they brought in from training field onto the pitch. Short corners have always been a big thing for the Irish team to, when we get that far and we win a short corner, to try and execute those. I think that will be something they will probably think about as well. I mean, I don't know, I'm not in the team, but I would hope so, because they're always great opportunities to score. I think performance, especially, I know we always want them to think win, which we do, but still performance at this stage, going into preparation for Euros and for the games, I think will be on the top of their list.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll watch with keen interest. Pleasure as always, Nikki. Thanks a million.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Nikki Symmons on the line there, looking ahead to the Softco International Series, Ireland versus Great Britain, live free to air over the weekend and into Tuesday as well. 9:18 on this Friday morning. Here's a bit of a flavour of what's coming up on OTB Sports Radio over the day. It's the classic from noon, 1:30. Paddy Power, half hour, going to mark your card ahead of the weekend's football. It'll be Friday Night Racing with Jared and Johnny from 3 today at 4. It's the Team 33 Legends interview, and with Enda Call in the hot seat. Who else could it be but Packy Bonner, the subject of that today. And then OTB Gold at 6 o'clock, life and times of Johnny Kilban, the boxer. And then we'll be into the radio show come 7 over on News Talk. So that is pretty much it from us for this morning. Delighted to have had you along with us. We've a crappy quiz to come.
Chris Waddle.
Oh, you're kidding me. September.
Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me?
Is that right?
I know, it's not right.
Anybody else?
Leash, was it?
Like, that is one of the most stupid questions.
Darius Vassell? Seriously, you all need to just stay quiet. This is getting really annoying doing this quiz.
What is going on here?
Welcome Welcome along to the shoutiest segment on Irish radio. It's the scintillating, it's the stupefying, it's the splendido crappy quiz. Every Friday we pit 3 of Team Off the Ball up against each other in a no-holds-barred quiz of sporting factoids at the end of the week. Allow me to welcome today's contestants. Our first contestant today is back with his tail between his legs after disappointing the nation a fortnight ago. The Ger versus Nathan welterweight clash was advertised as Frazier versus Ali, but it ended up being Mayweather versus McGregor. Can he salvage even just a little bit of pride today? Time will tell. It is the mustachioed menace, Ger Gilroy.
Fair enough, Owen. This quiz used to be much better when there was different people in charge. That's all I'd say. That intro, for example, you know?
Wow. Well, at least Owen can read the intro.
Thank you, Nathan.
What?
Explain the dig there, Ger, because I actually just don't get it.
I was just saying there was a golden age of this quiz. This is not it. You know, it's like the opening scene of The Sopranos where Tony Soprano goes, lately I got the feeling that I came in at the end, that all the best days are behind us. That's what I feel like. Wait.
It's like following Gay Byrne, Jared, is what you're saying. It's like the guy who came after Gay Byrne.
I don't even remember who that was.
Some of the guys.
Okay, our next contestant was last week throwing shade at Tommy, Adrian and Phil as the Europa League version of the quiz. And considering this person will more than likely spend a lot of Thursdays happening to watch Liverpool over the course of the next year, take it as a compliment. It is the beast of Ballyhaunis, Nathan Nate Dog Murphy.
Good to be back on. Good to be back
have
to
you
defend
back.
my crown. I'm surprised to see Adrian here. I tuned in last week. I found myself listening on the radio on a Friday evening, and the bitching and moaning once again out of Adrian Barry and Tommy Rooney is destroying this quiz. And you, I think I would have to go along with you on this, as quizmaster, need to rein them in. Where is fabulous Phil Egan? Where is he? Surely he should be here with the big dogs for the big quiz. Barry and Rooney, every question they get wrong, somebody has screwed them over. Just accept, Adrian, that you're lucky to be here. Try and get a few questions. Do a bit of research. Come on.
I'll put you out of your misery there and relieve you from that solo rant that makes no sense whatsoever. You listened to the quiz last week and that was your biggest takeaway. I got almost every question in that quiz correct last week. It just so happened none of them were mine.
Okay, that's good. I would tend to agree with Nathan for the first time in my life here. I think that it's important that you all. The descent to the bottom of the slippery slope. It's very comfortable down at the bottom, Adrian. Don't worry, mediocrity is fine.
I'm here. I've been here long enough now. It's comfortable. It's a comfy coat.
I also happen to disagree with Nathan's assessment because our last contestant today is a noticeably toned down version of the King of Outrage that crappy quiz viewers might have enjoyed before last year. This guy has not screamed at a novice barista in 18 months, and the universe is wondering where all the rage has gone. Give it up for Adrian, who's your daddy, Barry. I don't know what quiz you were listening to, Nathan, but I think Adrian is a more refined version of former King of Outrage himself.
No, he used to be outrage, and it was short, angry bursts, which we could live with. Whereas now it's just this constant. You see, you probably don't even notice it at this stage. This low-lying hum of moaning.
I can't believe that that's your takeaway from last week's quiz, where literally I got as he sips out of his mochaccino there. Giving me the guff about baristas or whatever else you're having yourself, nonsense. I got most of the questions right last week, and that's really the only thing that people need to know.
It wasn't a good story the first time.
Yeah, except the ones you were asked, which is the whole aim of the quiz.
It's not worried about that.
Okay, come on, move on.
The good news is that Nathan Murphy and Ger Gilroy are here to bring more maturity, apparently, to the quiz, so this should be interesting. The format is a classic crappy quiz with a series of questions on different themes, slip and slide of trivia,
Can I hang on a second? Hang on a second.
Come on, go for it.
Adrian Barry's had a haircut. This is ridiculous.
Yeah. Welcome to 2 weeks ago.
Are you having the same one every week? The other thing is, right, I was going to use this joke on somebody else, but it's now clear that your wife's been cutting your hair for the last decade because it hasn't changed at any point, and it's exactly the same now in lockdown.
I think the point you're trying to make, Jerry, is that my wife is an excellent barber, I think is what you're saying.
And has been for a decade, it turns out.
Well, there's not exactly a huge amount of complication of cutting my hair. You get the two-blade out and you take a bit of it short off the top and away you go. Yeah. She's done a stellar job. It's a combined effort. I do the shaving and she does the scissors and away we go. No arguments ever.
More of this good stuff coming up next week on the Crappy Quiz. You can podcast the Crappy Quiz on otbsports.com or on the OTB Sports app. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to click the thumbs up, even if you contribute nothing but misery to your day. Round 1 is the boring questions round, never multiple choice. Sure. Can you name the top try scorer in the Pro 14 this season?
James Lowe?
It's not James Lowe. He's a test player. Surely you would have gone
Dave Carney?
No, not Dave Carney. Could have given me one of 3 names here. There's a 3-way tie with 9
Robert
tries so
Balakoon.
far. Not Robert Balakoon, he's been injured. Marcel Coetzee, Scott Penny, and Alex Wootton.
Scott Penny, that was the one.
Are all tied on 9 ties this season. Nathan.
9 tries.
Question 1 for you.
They're all tried on 9 ties.
Again, not as good as the other guy.
No, not as good as the other guy. That never happened. No spoonerisms.
Can you name any full-time manager of Rangers in the last 10 years not called Ali McCoist or Stephen Gerrard?
Oh, Jesus.
Football man.
You're going to be accused of sectarianism for not knowing this, Nathan.
Yeah, well.
The entire reputation of our media organisation rests on your broad shoulders. Good question, Eoin. It did come up on OTB AM a good bit over the last couple of weeks, Nathan, so glad you've been paying attention to the...
He clearly hasn't a clue, by the way. It's not even as if he's sort of reaching around for choosing answers there.
No, I'm thinking of going from
the daily
Scottish manager who...
The daily sports breakfast show from Off the Ball that you can get on all of your social channels live from 7:30 every weekday morning with myself and Eoin. Go on there, Nathan. Answer the question.
Alex McLeish.
No. Anyone?
No.
You would have got away with Walter Smith, who was manager up until May 2011, so just about snuck in. Mark Warburton was the full-time manager after him.
Yeah.
And Pedro Caixinha was the manager after that. Graham Murty had 2 spells as caretaker.
Good old Graham.
I wouldn't have accepted that. So Nathan, nothing from your first question. Adrian, question 1 for you. They've been in the headlines this week. So, who was the last captain of a FIFA World Cup winning team that shares a first name with a member of the royal family?
Fritz.
For God's sake.
Is this football World Cup winning?
Football, yeah.
Eugenie. FIFA World Cup winning. Give me just the nuance of that first bit there again.
Who was the last captain of a FIFA World Cup winning team that shares a first name with a member of the royal family?
Are we talking about the men's World Cup or the women's World Cup?
Speaking out loud there,
Men's
Nathan.
World Cup.
Yeah, Nathan, he's speaking out loud, Jared, but to be fair, he just said the word Fabio. So, you know what I mean? I don't know. So it's going to be a bit of a stab here. It's probably Philip somebody or other.
Franz.
And I'm going to go with Philippe Lam.
Correct.
Yes! Woohoo!
You did say Rams that rhymes with lamb there, Nathan. What were you thinking?
I didn't hear the Ram, to be fair. I heard Fabio.
Said Franz.
That I tuned out.
But one is called Philippe, the other is called Philip.
No, it's Philip. They're both Philip.
And they're both German, so it's fine.
Well, he said Philippe.
Yeah, but like we knew what it is Philip. Philip with an extra P at the end, if anybody's wondering. Round 2 is the bad title defences round. On the back of Liverpool's nosedive, this round will test your knowledge on some of the other times Premier League title defences fell to smithereens.
That question was a bit easy in retrospect. Name the person who won the last World Cup.
That's ridiculous. It was not the slightest
I'll give you. Okay, the second last World Cup. I'll give you a hint. He's got the same name as like one of the famous owl lads who are in the news this week.
That wasn't the question.
A bit easy.
That was not the question.
Sure. In David Moyes' first season as Manchester United manager, he took a title-winning team to 7th place in the Premier League. Can you name the one non-traditional Big Six team that finished ahead of them at the end of that season?
Your traditional Big Six, you're including Spurs in that, are you?
Yeah.
It's a lot of silence there.
Yeah, I'm just trying to work out, did Everton beat Moyes in his first season? Was there a thing about that? I'm going to go with Leicester.
Yeah, no, there was a thing about that. No, it was Everton. Everton, that was the whole thing. The narrative was that they did pretty well without David Moyes. So you had the logic, but you didn't have the answer, sure. Question 2 for you, Nathan.
Bring back Jojo, I say. Bring back Jojo. I would have got that point. He would have just gone...
That's right, I was thinking that.
Jojo has been removed from tech op duty after his influence on the quiz recently. Question 2 for you, Nathan. When Leicester City won the Premier League title in 2016, they didn't stand still. They moved considerably backwards, although they did break their transfer record fee before the following season began. For which player?
Israel Slimani.
No, you got his first name wrong. It's Islam Slimani. Not Israel.
I got the
Slimani. Sorry, Nathan. That's the way it works.
They are different.
Totally different.
You've got to say,
no, you did not get
there's
it.
no more
Israel
different thing in the world that you could have gone for than that one word. So I agree.
That's a correct answer.
No, it's not.
Slimani. If I said Slimani,
yeah,
I would
but you didn't. You didn't. You were the one who went Philippe.
No. I'm intervening here, and I'm actually changing my mind. You deserve it for saying Slimani. It was a great answer.
Absolutely, I deserve it. Ger, I knew this. Ger didn't have a clue who it was.
Yeah, no, I'm giving you that. Slimani's a good answer.
Owen, he should not be given that point purely on the basis that he was bitching and moaning a bit earlier when I had the correct pronunciation of the word Philip.
He's right.
You got the point.
It doesn't matter.
I'm saying the word Philip. He said a different word entirely.
Yeah, but you got Slimani.
If he had said Slimani, I would have given him the answer. So I have to be consistent here.
Diametrically opposed.
Yeah, so what if he said Frank Slimani? Would you give him the answer?
Yeah, come on.
It would be different. If he had said maybe like John Vardy instead of Jamie Vardy, then we could have had a question. But like Slimani, there is...
Israel,
it was a great answer. It was a great answer. These two lads have never even heard of him.
Yeah, but it's offensive to call him Israel Slimani. Question 2 for you, Adrian. Who succeeded Jose Mourinho in their disastrous 2015-16 season when they failed miserably to retain their Premier League title?
Is there a religion that Nathan hasn't offended in the first 10 minutes of the quiz tonight?
I mean, it's probably not him, so this is not my answer. The answer is almost always Avram Grant. No, I'm not. That's not what I'm offering forward here. I'm just throwing it out there on the hope that Jojo is back in the box somehow. I think it was Rafa.
It wasn't Rafa.
Gus
Hiddink. Yeah, Gus Hiddink. So, Adrian, you stick on 1 point. Nathan, you're on 1. You're on 0. As we move on to round 3, which is the Scotland Sports People round. Ahead of another round of the 2021 Six Nations, here is another round on the Sporty Nation, pitting its wits against Ireland this weekend.
How many questions about Scotland can we get?
I know.
Come on.
This was tough. This was tough to put together. Ger, which Scot is the top point scorer in the history of the Irish and British Lions?
God.
What?
The top scorer in the history of the Lions is a Scot. Who is it?
You could have just said that the first time as opposed to complicating the shit out of it.
It says the exact same thing.
Come on.
Big talk.
Hastings?
What's that?
Like, come on!
Wait, no. We need a full name. We need a full name here.
Yeah. There's a couple of them.
This won't stand.
No.
It has to be a full name. Come on.
I've got the point.
No.
What did you say? Like, give us the full name.
You said if I'd said Slimani, I would have given it to you.
Different.
Well, I'll tell you what. If Islam Slimani has a brother called Israel Slimani, well then.
What?
No, because that makes no sense. There are two brothers, and we need a name. It's clear. You can't. Come on, Quizmaster. What's the ruling?
Yeah, no, we need a first name here, sir.
It's Gavin Hastings.
Correct.
That is the most ridiculously easy question there's ever been.
It was obvious which one of them it was because only one of them took kicks. But like, how is Gavin Hastings the top scorer in Lions history? Is that true?
I don't know.
I don't. Anyway, look, I got the point. I'll take it. We're moving on.
Nathan, who holds the record for the most Premier League appearances by a Scotsman?
Oh, crikey. Good question. Very good question.
Godwin Jury. Gavin McAllister. Gary.
Oh.
Charles, any chance you can stop talking anytime soon?
I was tempted by Darren Fletcher, but I'm going to go with Gary McAllister.
It's not. It is Darren Fletcher.
Rent free, baby, rent free.
Oh, genius.
Oh. McAllister is, I think, maybe second. He's actually near the top.
There's no way it could have been Gary McAllister because the Premier League he won the old First Division as an owl lad.
That is great. I was thinking the exact same. I was thinking it must be Fletcher. And then I thought, ooh, go well, McAllister. Wow.
Adrian, you have the point to go, you have the opportunity, I should say, to go 1 point up here before the Fun for Your Magic number round. So,
play the dance music.
Can you name the last Scottish man to be full-time manager of Celtic?
Celtic.
What's going through your mind?
Vim, what was his name?
Vim Coop.
Doctor.
I was going to say Vim Coopermans.
No,
Vim Young.
No, not Vim Young. There's another one.
Vim Young. Vim Keith.
Not Vim Keith.
What was your man's name? The doctor.
Who was it? Dr. Joseph Venglas.
Joseph Venglas.
Venglas, yeah. Was he Scottish?
Who signed Larson? Oh my God, I can't believe I can't remember this. He won the league. He stopped Rangers 10 in a row. What was his name?
Jim Jansen.
Did you look that up?
Yes.
That was
Adrian. Adrian, who is the last Scottish man to be full-time manager of Celtic?
I don't really have anything else to offer other than Jock Steen.
Gordon Strachan.
Gordon Strachan.
The other thing
Gordon
that I said
Strachan
earlier.
is the answer. So it's 1-1 going into round 4, which is the fun-free magic number round. Contestants get 3 points for getting the number exactly right. If no one manages that, the nearest contestant who doesn't go bust gets 2 points.
Did you see how quickly Nathan looked up Vim Jansen there at the computer beside his desk? Just,
good point.
Did everybody get that? Did everybody
even noticed it.
appreciate how quickly he looked up Vim Jansen?
I just put in Vim and it came up, so...
When you put in Slimani and it came up, there was like a Israel Slimani.
Everywhere lives under the sun.
Google is broken.
I'm going to say that we can only accept the answer that's written on your paper, and I'm going to have to ask for your pens once the music ends. So if you don't mind, give us the following number. The number of top-flight titles now won by Rangers, plus the number of Champions League goals scored by Erling Haaland in his career so far, plus the number Gareth Bale wears at Tottenham, plus the number of Kilkenny players on the Camogie Team of the Year announced last weekend. Your 30 seconds expire when Sinatra sings Bright Shiny Beats. So, how many top-flight league titles have Rangers won? How many Champions League goals has Erling Haaland scored so far in his career? The number that Bale wears on his shirt at Spurs, and then the amount of Kilkenny players on the Camogie Team of the Year, which was revealed last weekend. Add them all up. What do you get? Sure, what have you got?
93.
Adrian?
93.
Nathan?
Oh, I decided to play it safe. I thought it was 92, but I've gone for 91.
It's 90!
Oh,
You're all busts. You've all gone over. It is still a tie going into the final round.
Kilkenny got 2 or 3.
6. So Kilkenny got 6 Camogie All-Stars. Gareth Bale wears what number at Spurs?
Must be 8.
9.
9.
I've 9.
Yeah.
I've 9 and 6.
The number of career Champions League goals scored by Erling Haaland?
14.
20, no?
22.
20. And then the number of top-flight titles won by Rangers?
55.
55, yeah.
That doesn't add up.
Yes, it does.
55, 20, 9 and...
6.
55 plus 20 is 75. Plus 9 is 84. Plus 6 is 90.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
What did you do there, Adrian?
No, because I actually reduced my... Anyway.
Oh, damn it.
So 90 is the answer. You're all gone bust.
Whoa.
Which is a really interesting
I had 64
scenario.
titles for Adrian.
Do I get anything for having 3 of those answers spot on, Eoin? Is there like some sort of a token bonus point that you can offer?
This question is asked every week.
Seemed like a reasonable thing.
The answer is always no. On to the final.
That was just me doing a Nathan to let everybody know that I got 3 to 4 correct.
But sure, I got 3 to 4 correct, and here I'm not bullshit about it. And I never asked for a token point. I just try and earn my points through the quiz, unlike yourself.
Well, apart from the one you got wrong and then got a point for, sure.
Yeah, come on. Like, hang on a second. I had to get Gavin Hastings right, and he got the first name of Slimani completely
Gavin
wrong.
Hastings is the most straightforward.
That should go to the Dubious Answers Commission.
Yeah, what's the difference there? So it should be a 50-50 between me and Adrian to see here what happens. Although, hang on a second.
That's true.
Did you change the rules while I was away? Like everybody said?
No. You can start on another podcast or something. The Crappy Quiz Dispute Relations Committee is not meeting today. It's one of the worst pieces of radio to listen to consistently on a weekly basis. So we're just putting a pin in it, and we're moving on to the final.
Good presentation. Well done. Good man.
What's the score?
Thank you.
What's the score?
Feels good. It's 1-1. Oof. Everybody's on one. Everybody's level. Our winner tonight will be decided in the round that separates the men from the boys, the Joachim Kellys from the Joachim Loves. It's a no theme in particular, ridiculously easy rapid fire round. The score you get in this round will be added to your score in the previous round, and 40 seconds for everyone to answer from the same set of questions. So we're going to start with the person with the highest number of points, and I tossed a couple of coins earlier on.
Did you?
He looks around the room.
So if it was Adrian versus Ger would get the nod. If it was Nathan versus Ger, then Nathan gets the nod.
But if it was Adrian versus Nathan, Adrian
that means...
Is that right?
It's Nathan.
That makes no sense. Your logic does not. It makes no sense.
Yes.
It makes no sense.
No.
You put me and Jerry into a repechage, and then Jerry went straight into the final with Nathan. It makes no sense.
No.
Okay, do you know what we're going to do? We're going to do an Ireland Caps tiebreaker. And whoever gets closest to this gets to go first.
I like this.
You're going to have to write this down again.
Right.
How many Ireland Caps does Liam Lawrence have?
Too many?
I don't know.
God, apologies to former guest of the show, Liam Lawrence.
Yeah, I'd like to distance myself from Adrian Barry's, like, completely
great guy.
Nonsensical.
Great guy.
Sure, what have you got written down? We can't see you, so we'll go to you first.
17.
17, Adrian?
16.
Nathan?
24.
Adrian gets to go first because it's 15.
Oh!
Ger gets 16, so he gets to go
What?
last.
No, there's going to be another one now between myself and Jerry.
Tables have completely turned. Right. Adrian,
that's legit. That's legit. It's gone on Sporting Knowledge. That's legit.
No. This should be when it's a tie between everybody. Everybody should get the same amount of questions.
No, that's legit.
Now it's just completely unfair.
No,
Adrian hasn't earned this spot.
Just on a point of information, we were all too high there. We should do it again.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, everyone's buzzed.
No. That's different round, lads.
No one cares. I said beforehand, whoever's closest gets to go first. Adrian Barry, are you ready?
I am ready on. Let's go.
40 seconds starts now. Who played Tonya Harding in I, Tonya?
Alanis Morissette.
No, Margot Robbie. Who's top of Serie A, Ger?
Inter.
Correct. Who scored Porto's free kick to knock Juve out of the Champions League this week?
Acuna.
No, Sergio Oliveira. Fraher Field is in which county, Nathan?
Waterford.
Correct. Who is bottom of the championship?
Wickham.
Correct. If the O'Byrne Cup is a Leinster pre-season football competition, what's the Connacht equivalent?
FBD League.
Correct. Name the Camogie Player of the Year. No, too long. Adrian, name the Borussia Dortmund manager. It's not going to matter anyway.
Yes.
Farfield.
He tried
that's a joke. He got jokes. The FBD League and Farfield. They're open goals.
Everything to screw me over, and still I came through it.
They're open goals.
Back to the Europa League for you, Barry.
Such a good winner. You're such a good winner as well. It's with such good grace.
I'm sorry. Sorry. 1 second. Who played Tonya Harding in I, Tonya versus where is Fraher Field? Come on! There's no equivalence there.
Where is Fraher Field, Adrian?
It's in Waterford. That is like it's a gimme. It's a tap in. That wasn't the question. That is absolutely ludicrous. That is ludicrous.
Can we get the music? Can we get the celebratory music for
Mute those guys, please. Let me have my moment once again.
Nathan. Give us your victory speech.
Undefeated in 2021. Can anybody come forward and challenge this guy? Barry's relegated. Back to the Europa League for him. Bring on Phil Egan. We give him his beating next week.
Just a couple of weeks.
No sign of Tommy Rudy. Thank Christ.
Give me some training in a couple of weeks. I'm telling you.
We'll keep Jared Gilroy just because I like to see the bitterness and the anger and the depression in his eyes as he takes his beating once again.
Go and lord it as the beast of Ballyhonest there.
Yeah, he's certainly going to do that this weekend. Thanks, Minnie, for joining us this week on the Crappy Quiz. We'll be back next week where hopefully things are a little bit better.
Chris Bond.
Oh, you're kidding me. September.
Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me?
Is that right?
I know, it's not right.
Anybody else?
Leash, was it?
Like, that is one of the most stupid questions.
Darius Vassell? Seriously, you all need to just stay quiet. This is getting really annoying doing this quiz.
What is going on here?
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen it. Don't feel like a punter, feel like a favourite this Cheltenham with Paddy Power. They didn't even give you a line, Peter.
No. I think my acting skills left a lot to be desired in the first ad we did. So, didn't warrant a line this time.
Your dad worked in advertising, I gather. So did you take the creative lead on this?
No, it certainly wasn't my creative. I wouldn't have described myself as, not ready for breathing. No. I always, whenever I work, they're always good ads. They're always good ideas. So I enjoyed being involved in this one. But yeah, my dad was well involved in advertising. I went on a few shoots with him at an early age. I probably would have got into that if I didn't get into football.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I loved it. I went on a few shoots with him. We did a few campaigns, and yeah, it was good fun.
It turns out post-football life is going all right from you. You're never off our TV screens. You're back with another series of this wildly successful podcast. You're doing punditry with BT Sports. You had a prime time Saturday night TV show on the BBC. Is part of you thinking, maybe that last year in Burnley, maybe I should have retired a year earlier?
No, I enjoyed that. I had a 20-odd year career, so I loved it. I was so scared of sort of not being able to do anything, that I probably took on a little bit too much at the start when I retired, and things are going great. So I've managed to scale back a bit now and just do the things that I really, really enjoy. I always enjoy working with Paddy Power, doing these kind of ads and stuff. But yeah, the football stuff, I'm staying involved, and the podcast I absolutely love. So yeah, there's just a handful of things that I really, really enjoy doing. So I feel quite lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a bit mad how well it's gone that a year after retiring, you're sitting there at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night on the BBC interviewing Liam Gallagher.
Honestly, some of the things that have happened have just been crazy. Like even with the podcast, we had the Crouch Fest, and when Liam Gallagher was there, like Catherine Jenkins was singing, it was a bizarre occasion. And like you say, the Saturday night show was great fun. We had some brilliant guests. It was supposed to have the Euro backdrop, but obviously that got cancelled, and we ended up doing it. But it was great fun and something that I enjoy. But with the podcast as well, it's just great. But certainly with the football stuff that I do, I'm involved in the Champions League, all the big matches. Just a shame we haven't been able to go to them.
Yeah, it really is. Have you had time to miss football then?
Yeah, I'll always miss it. There'll always be that nagging thing, and there's a few things sort of like the back of my mind that when I see people like Scott Parker, Steven Gerrard, players I played with now, Frank Lampard, who have gone into management, and I think when they win a match or they achieve something, I think I'm never gonna have that again. But I can't complain because what I'm doing, I'm absolutely loving. I'm lucky to be involved in loads of fun stuff and continue to enjoy it. But there is that nagging sort of suspicion that I'm not going to win as a team again, and that day-to-day stuff. Going into training and just having a laugh and doing something that you love every day. Of course I'll miss it, but this is the next best thing.
Yeah, it did really seem in those latter years at Stoke and at Burnley that you properly enjoyed that dressing room atmosphere, that you were almost able, a bit mature, to take that step back and appreciate it for what it was?
Yeah, definitely. I think certainly early on in my career, I was so sort of concentrating on, trying to make it, trying to get in the next team that I needed to be in, or the next, England squad, playing for Liverpool, it's just so intense. You never get a minute to sort of sit back and think about what you've achieved or what you're doing at the time. But yeah, like you say, I mean, certainly at 37, 38, when I was at Stoke and I was at Burnley, a lot of the time we'd play one game a week, and, by the time I was 38, I was barely playing really. So I could sort of take stock and just enjoy it a bit more. Which is what I did, yeah. And I wouldn't change my career for anything. I know I've had probably too many clubs. I had loads of clubs, but I would have liked to have stayed at one club all my life. But I wouldn't change it for the world, because I just experienced so many different things. Yeah, you mightn't have been played as much, but you were still competitive. I was doing a bit of research, so I was talking to one of your former teammates yesterday who said you are still the tech ball champion with this person from your time at Burnley. And he also said to ask him about the Hummer golf buggy I saw him driving in Portugal. Oh, who's that then? Well, there's an Irish connection there. You might have played up front together a few times. Yeah. Fair play. God. Yeah, well, the Hummer golf buggy, it wasn't mine. It was a friend of mine's, and I rented his place, and he had that was his buggy to get about. So. Yeah, it was interesting. I was trying to keep my head down at times, but it was a little bit, yeah. Not sure what Roy Keane would have made of it, but it was... you pulled up alongside him again. Not sure how pleased he'd have been, but it was a great to get about. But tech ball, oh my God, yeah, I absolutely love it. I've got a table myself at home for the summer, so that'll be out in the summer. I absolutely love it. Let's talk about what's going on at the moment then, because you are going to games. What the hell is going on with Liverpool? Oh, it's so difficult to put your finger on them. I just think there's so many little factors that have added up to be a big problem, and you can't get away from the fact that it is a big problem at the moment. The teams that they've lost at home to or drawn at home, especially, I think they've. They haven't won in 7. It's the worst record ever for a Liverpool side. So you can't say it's a blip anymore. It's actually a real big problem. But yeah, I mean, it starts with the injuries. Certainly to Van Dijk, to Gomez, to Fabinho, to Henderson. Anyone who seems to come in and replace in the centre half role gets injured. And then you're ripping the midfield out, ripping the midfield of Fabinho and Henderson out to cope with that, problem at the centre half. And then the fullbacks can't get forward as much, and in tandem is a lack of form with the strikers. Firmino, Mane, even Salah at times, even though he's scored so many goals. But those two, with Mane, certainly Firmino, have suffered a lack of form. Lots of little factors that have caused a big problem. It does feel as though it is that mix of everything: the energy, the attitude, the confidence levels, the organisation, even the noise. Listening to them, it doesn't seem as loud on the pitch with the players. But to lose it that quickly, because you go back to Christmas, they're top of the Premier League, they're 3.5 years unbeaten at home, they've just put 7 past Crystal Palace. Even for the likes of Salah as a forward, can it go that quickly in the space of 2 months that everything that's in the well for 3 years of unbelievable success, it's as if that never happened now when you watch them? It's really, really strange, isn't it? And your answer to the question is yeah. I mean, it only takes one game. If you have a bad game, you're thinking about that, or it only takes one game to miss a chance to, even if you've gone on a run of 6 or 7 goals in 6 or 7 games, as soon as you have that one miss, you start thinking about it. That can lead to more lack of confidence, and that's what's happened. And listen, I'm like you. I can't. It's really hard to put your finger on. I made bets when they lost the first couple of games at home with Man United fans, friends of mine, made some big bets. Ones that I'm really not looking forward to paying, really. Not financial, but quite embarrassing for me at times, I'm not looking forward to that, because, it's looking like Man United are going to finish above Liverpool, but I never thought I'd say that the season after winning it. Yeah. What can you do as a player in that scenario? Because the obvious example for yourself is going to Liverpool, where I presume when you went,
having had such a good season at Southampton, the buzz you were on at arriving at a club like Liverpool, you're probably peak confidence, and then nothing happens for 3 or 4 months, and there's a goal drought and pressure's rising. Maybe it's different because there's fans in the stadium back then. What's that like to live through that sort of declining confidence over a space of time?
That football-wise, that was the most difficult period of my career, without a doubt. I've gone to a huge club just off the back of Istanbul, 2005. I've just been signed, and they've got a striker that can't score. It was really, really difficult. But I felt I went there and I was sort of doing everything Rafa said, and I was playing a sort of different role. And he was happy with me, and he kept saying that to me. And it was amazing when I did start scoring. The reason I started scoring because I just went back to what I was doing at Southampton, and everyone was really pleased. Everyone apart from Rafa, really, because I was doing my own thing more than doing his thing. But I felt that I had to become more selfish, and I was more selfish, and thankfully I got over that. But it was some really difficult times, I have to say.
What are your teammates like during that spell? Because you say they're coming back, they're European champions, they're expecting to kick on, and you're the new big money signing up front. Are they openly supportive? Or are you looking around the dressing room feeling, geez, am I letting these guys down?
No, it wasn't like that for 1 second. I didn't feel that for 1 second at all. I think it's a weird thing because I think being at a club like Liverpool, I was in exactly the right place. It became sort of me, the players, the staff, the fans against everyone else who was trying to ridicule me. And that's just the mentality that I think you get at Liverpool, as a city, really. If someone's having a go at sort of one of their own, it's like, everyone sort of battens down the hatches and defends that person. And I think everyone could see in the stadium that I was doing really well. I was working hard, and I was hopefully a good lad. And then, it always seemed, just never felt for 1 second that the fans ever got on my back. And when I did score, I think you can see the game at Wigan. It's like the camera was shaking, the whole team was with me, celebrating when I scored. And then, and the fans were going crazy. And it was, there's not many clubs, especially top clubs, that would have stuck with someone like they did with me.
Yeah, and were you able to, at the time, think like that actually these people here in the dressing room have my back, those supporters have my back, and that sort of, you used the word ridicule, that outside tabloid ridicule that was there, I can ignore that, or is it just impossible to ignore it?
Listen, I tried my best to ignore it. It was hard. I remember they had on one of the pullouts in one of the newspapers, there was because I hadn't scored in 24 hours, they did me as Jack Bauer in the 24. I always remember it, and I think it might have been the day that I scored that I was front page of the pullout as Jack Bauer in 24 hours, and then it was that. I mean, every time I turned on the TV, Sky Sports News, they were showing Nispies. It was horrendous. I mean, it was everywhere I looked. My mum and dad stopped buying newspapers. It was it was huge news because it was Liverpool, and I was playing for England as well. So, it was a difficult time. Well, I had good people around me that sort of got me out of it. And then after that, it was, thank God, the floodgates opened and I started scoring.
Yeah, and good forwards around you as well, because that was the season Robbie Fowler made his return to the club. Fernando Morientes was there at the time. Obviously, Gerrard and Alonso just behind you over the next couple of years. Kaut comes in. Fernando Torres comes in. Were you a sponge for those kind of players as to what you could learn from them?
Yeah, I mean, listen, being at Liverpool, you've always got like competition for places. There's so much, ability in the dress room, and every single day in training was intense. It was like, the pressure was on. It was playing at a club like that. It was just, a privilege to sort of be and see it happen.
What was Fowler like in training?
Yeah, brilliant. Just a great finisher. I mean, listen, he wasn't the Robbie Fowler that burst on the scene at sort of 18. He was, he'd been around and, he'd come back. He wasn't the same player. He'd lost a yard, to be fair. But in training, like finishing sessions, anything like that, he's still world class. He's one of those players you give him a chance. It's in the back of the net. But yeah, and then Torres, Dirk Kuyt had different sort of abilities. Morientes, like you say, was class in some ways. Yeah, and it was every day I was learning.
I heard you picking your all-time five-a-side team at one stage, and you put Gerrard and Alonso in midfield, and I thought, well, fair enough, who else could it be? And then I'm thinking, well, you played with Luka Modric. Was it just that Luka Modric at that Spurs stage wasn't maybe the player he was 4 or 5 years ago at Real Madrid?
I can't remember that team because I've picked a few five-a-side teams, and Modric has always been in it.
So who are you leaving out, Gerrard or Alonso?
Oh, I'm leaving Alonso out, not because I've said that quickly, but Modric was unbelievable, and Gerrard was the best player I played with, but Modric was a joke, and I think they'd complement each other really well. But
in what way was Modric a joke?
Oh, just like, I just didn't see him lose the ball. And it's one of those, in an era where we all talk about stats and assists and goals, he's not going to be top of all those lists, like tackles or work rate. But with a footballing eye, to watch someone like Luka Modric, he was a genius. I watched him wriggle out of positions in training. I can't remember him ever give the ball away. He dictated the tempo of football matches. He dictated games. He always had an eye for a pass. He could score a goal. He was a beautiful player to watch.
On Spurs then, turns out they brought this guy in last summer, Gareth Bale, who can still play a bit of football.
Yeah, of course he can. He was struggling a bit with fitness. I interviewed him actually when he first come over, and he was so excited to get going at Spurs. But yeah, it just didn't work out for a long time. Just didn't work out for a long time.
The outside opinion again would be that excitement you speak of wasn't there, that he was coming to the end. He's coming to the end of his career. He loves his golf. Well, actually, this is return back to Britain and feet up.
Yeah, well, in all honesty, the exact opposite. That's what I saw when he first arrived back. Because, if you wanted to play golf, listen, the golf courses in Madrid and the weather is far better than coming down to London. I can tell you that. Having spoke to him, he absolutely loved Madrid, like as a place. He was struggling not playing, but he loved it as a place, and the golf courses were very nice. But coming to Tottenham, he had unfinished business football-wise, and I think fitness-wise, I think because he's such a laid-back character, some people see that as he doesn't care. But it's not the case, But he's never going to scream and shout. He's never going to bang door down if he's not playing, because he's just a happy-go-lucky sort of laid-back character. But once he gets on a football pitch and he's fit, he's a top player.
On Bale, then, you mentioned Gerrard is the best player you ever played against. If you were to put the Gerrard FA Cup Final 06 up against Bale, Inter Milan, Taxi from Icon. Which one's coming out on top?
Oh, my God. God, that's difficult, because I think as an individual performance, like for the entire game, I'd say Gareth Bale. But for sheer, whatever that was that Stevie did, I look at my medal every day and I think about Stevie. He had cramp. He picked himself up and hit two absolute worldies to win the game for us. So, I mean, they're different. I think Stevie had two unbelievable moments of genius, and Gareth Bale's performance overall was just never seen anything like it.
So you're not that footballer when he asks, what do you do with your medals? They say, I don't know, give them to the parents, haven't seen them in years. You actually have it front and centre.
Oh, no, I've got mine, yeah. It is upstairs. It's not got pride of place in the office or anything. It's upstairs in a box. But, I do look at it every now and then and think of Steven Gerrard.
Peter, thanks a million for joining us on Off the Ball.
Pleasure.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our